Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, so we should be good.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the Birmingham City Commission meeting of May 18, 2020 to order. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
Just
and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please take the call?
Mayor Boutros,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Here.
Commissioner Baylor,
Here.
Commissioner Huff,
Here.
Commissioner Host, Commissioner Nikita,
Here.
Commissioner Sherman.
Here.
Should I try to call for Commissioner Host again?
Well, he's dialing in. I think we'll mark him present at the time he calls in.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll proceed with the proclamations, congratulatory resolutions, awards, appointments, resignation and confirmations, administration of oath, introduction of guests, and announcements. All city offices remain closed to the public. All departments are accessible via phone and email. Payments may be dropped off using the convenient drop box located behind City Hall and accessible via the police department parking lot off Henrietta Street. The city has created a hotline to provide residents with information about city and county COVID-19 resources. Elderly, quarantined, and immunocompromised individuals are encouraged to use the hotline to request assistance with essential functions and obtaining necessary supplies. Call 248-530-1805, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We encourage everyone to sign up for our email distribution system to receive the latest information from the city. You can do this by going to our website and clicking on the box in the lower right corner of your screen to sign up. On June 5th, we would like to recognize Gun Violence Awareness Day. On this day, we encourage everyone to wear orange to honor those that were victims of gun violence in our country. Visit our social media platforms for further information. I personally want to give out a shout and special thanks to all these residents, to the residents that brought this to my attention. We thank you. This year, residents can watch an online Memorial Day ceremony on our Facebook page as there will be no public event in the park. The online ceremony will begin at 10 a.m. on Monday, May 25th, and can be accessed at www.facebook.com/bham.gov. All registered Birmingham voters as of Tuesday, April 28, 2020, who were not on our absentee voter mailing list will be receiving a postcard soon. Complete and return this postcard to be placed on our absentee voter mailing list. The Birmingham Farmers Market will take place every Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. in public parking lot number 6. You can also visit www.allinbirmingham.com for more information. And that would do it for our announcement for tonight. And our next item on the agenda is consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and approved by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of the items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered under the last item of new business. And now the question to my fellow commissioners, would anyone would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Commissioner Baller?
Yeah, item F, please.
F as
Like Frank.
Okay, thank you. Do I see any other hand from the commissioners? Commissioner Nikita?
Item A, please.
Nikita and Baller. Mr. Sherman, Commissioner Sherman?
I also would have removed item F.
F as a Frank? Okay,
Yes, it's already been removed, but just noted.
you got it. All right. Would any of the public like any item on the consent agenda to be removed? Please help me, Eric, if you see any hand. I don't see any.
I don't.
And if there's any public that I don't see their hand, you can just speak, please. All right, there's none? Okay. So do we entertain a motion here? Commissioner Sherman?
I'll move the consent agenda excluding items A and F.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Hoff. Thank you. All right.
Are you ready for me to
Yeah.
do? Okay.
Sorry, yeah, about to say. Go ahead, Alex, for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Sherman?
Aye.
Commissioner Huff?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Baller?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Here we go, good.
Commissioner
All right.
Nikita?
Yes.
Mayor Boutros?
Yes. All right. We'll take them in the order we receive. Let's discuss item A by Commissioner Nikita.
Okay, that wasn't the first one pulled, but I'll be happy to go if that wasn't the order that it came in, but I'll be happy to go. It's very simple. On the minutes from last meeting, at the very, very end, prior to the adjournment, the last couple lines, it says there was a consensus among 4 commissioners to bring discussions on public comment to a future meeting. That actually, I would suggest that we strike that entire note, because there wasn't a consensus. We didn't actually have a discussion to the point where there was any kind of this consensus or dialogue. So that's actually just an inaccurate statement, and I would say it needs to be just taken out.
Commissioner Baller?
Yes, I disagree. I think that Mayor Pro Tem Long and I and Commissioner Host and Mayor Boutros were all in favor of that. And so I think it's an accurate reflection of what occurred. If you'd like us to reaffirm our...
If I could, Mr. Mayor?
We can do that.
If I could, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Commissioner Nikita.
Yeah, I would ask just to be accurate in the minutes, on the tape and the video. I think it'll show that there was no consensus. So I would ask that this item be the agenda. I'm sorry, the minutes be held until that is clarified with with our staff and with the clerk's office, and then it can be brought back to us. But I believe there was no consensus on that.
Okay, did you get that, Alex?
Yep, and Verna, Cheryl, and I will rewatch it again and confirm and make sure we adjust accordingly.
Okay, thank you so much. With that, any...
Mr. Mayor, can you hear Commissioner Host here?
Go ahead, Commissioner Host.
I have a problem with item A as well, but it's just one word. It's on page 11, the second to the last paragraph, which is under the heading Public Comments. The first line, the last word is unauthorized, and I would like that stricken from the minutes, please. The word unauthorized.
I'm sorry. Let me go back and review that.
record and we can bring the minutes back at the subsequent meeting.
We got it, Commissioner Host. We'll go back and review the records and we'll bring it back with the same exact correction, if that's what it is.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other comment on item A? Okay. From the public? None? Okay. Do I have a motion, Commissioner Nikita?
We're
We're going to pass on this.
Oh, so no action. Okay. All right.
But wait, guys, David Bloom here. I have a comment, if you can hear me. Sorry, I tried to raise my hand.
Go ahead.
Okay. At the very end of the meeting during the public comment period, I had made an additional comment about Hunter House. And what I said is that we should not be building or approving more office in Birmingham without some kind of discussion on how we're going to be handling the parking. And that comment was not reflected there. The other comment I made about the Hunter House building was, if I can paraphrase what I said, if someone is going to be building and investing this kind of money in Birmingham because it's a desirable place to invest, they ought to be designing a building that respects the character of Birmingham and the quality of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. All right. With that, we can move to item F. Commissioner Baller?
Yeah, for obvious reasons, this needs to be pulled because it's got, options there, right?
Sure.
And I guess it probably makes sense to, if I may, suggest you ask for Mr. Bauman, who's present, to address us on this.
Yeah, before I do so, I'd like Mr. Valentine just to explain how we're going to handle this further, please. Go ahead, Mr. Valentine.
Well, at this point,
go ahead.
At this point, the item's been pulled and it's been up for discussion. So I think the comments at this point are for Mr. Bauman to address the concerns by Commissioner Baller.
Right.
Am I on?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, sorry. Yep. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bauman, sorry. Go ahead. If you're on the floor, go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, before Mr. Bauman starts, may I?
You go ahead.
Question as to whether it's my understanding that Mr. Baller may have a economic relationship with the chamber, in which case he may have a conflict here and need to recuse himself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Commissioner Sherman. I do. So I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me, Mr. Bauman?
I can. Thank you all. It's
Go ahead.
great. Let me just start by saying it's great to see everyone. I've missed all of you. Obviously, we've been working remotely. I've been in the office for 1 day a week for critical matters, but I sure do miss my second home of Birmingham. I was asked to respond to some concerns from Commissioner Baller, but I didn't hear him express any specific concerns, so I'm not really sure what it is you would like me to address.
Yeah, 1 second, Joe. I'm going to give it to Mr. Valentine, okay? Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Bauman, I think the concerns are relative to the issues of the status of the pandemic that we're in and relative to having an event in early July. I know you provided a COVID plan, or the contractor provided a COVID plan for the event. I think it would be helpful for everyone if you could speak to the intention of holding the event in July, what precautions you plan on implementing to allow the event to occur. I believe that being the main concern with this item. So that gives you some parameters to address. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Valentine. So as you know, the Village Fair typically is the week following Memorial Day. We knew early on that that was not going to be possible because of the governor's stay-at-home order and all the health concerns related to having public gatherings. So we reached back to the fair operator and we asked them for the latest possible rescheduled date they had available. Truth be told, we were hoping for a September date. We thought that would give enough distance to the situation that would alleviate a lot of the concerns. The July 9th to 12th dates are the last possible dates that they had available on their calendar. So for us, it was, this is what you have, or we're not going to be able to accommodate the fair. So we started working through that. I talked to the city manager's office, the city clerk's office, and asked what was the process for amending our permit request for the later dates. And that's what we did. We reached back to the fair operator. We got their mitigation plan as to how they would work to protect their employees and their staff and make sure that they're following everything that they're supposed to be doing. And then ultimately, we realized that we are not in control of this situation. We are going to be, we will abide by whatever recommendations and mandates there are from either a local government, the county, or the state of Michigan as to whether ultimately this fair takes place or not. We're not going to try to ignore any kind of mandate from the state or the county. We're going to do everything we can to keep everybody safe, but we needed to get this meeting tonight as the next step of going forward, realizing that there will be a much more serious consideration made closer to the event date in consultation with the city, with the police department, and with the county health department, and with the state of Michigan. So that's how we arrived to the July 9th to 12th dates. It was really our only alternative at that point.
Commissioner Hoff, go ahead, please.
Yes, I have a couple questions. First of all, Joe, there's a note in your application that there's a revised plan due to the Maple Road reconstruction. Is that revised since we saw it, or are you referring to how it was originally planned for the current dates? Was it June? Yeah, June dates.
No, so that's referring to the original plan that was submitted, which was revised from what we normally have for the layout.
Okay. And let me ask you this. If it is held in July, there would probably, in my opinion, be less attendance. There are a lot of people who would not want to come, or those children won't be there. How does this, I know this is a major fundraiser for the chamber. How do you feel about putting forth the effort to have this? Will it be worth it, not knowing what kind of attendance you will get?
That's a great question. So the Village Fair is the chamber's largest fundraiser and revenue producer that we have. There certainly are considerations as to how many people would be there. We're less concerned about that than we are making sure that we're able to have an event that is safe for all of our guests and all the residents of Birmingham. If we end up having an affair with less attendance, we certainly understand that and we anticipate that. But we think it's more important to just continue a tradition that's been going on for more than 65 years, if we can do it in a safe manner and one that everybody's comfortable with. The interesting thing about the July dates, and one of the reasons why our operator didn't have any later dates for us to consider, is under the plans right now, and obviously things are always subject to change depending on what happens down the road. Both the state of Ohio and the state of Indiana, and now the state of Wisconsin, under their return to normal plans, or whatever you want to call it. In Michigan, we've got the 6-phase plan. All of their plans currently call for their states being reopened with no restrictions as it relates to size of gatherings, size of events, or anything, effective July 2nd. So I think with our fair operator, who obviously conducts fairs throughout the country, that's why we weren't able to secure a later date, because after July 2nd, in many of the areas of the Midwest where they do business, they're going to be open for business full on. So that's why we weren't able to get a later date. But you're absolutely right. We would anticipate a smaller crowd, no question about it. But frankly, from our standpoint, we think the Village Fair would be a wonderful way, if at all possible, if it's permissible with our current environment, to kind of reopen Birmingham to some sense of normalcy, understanding that that will be guided by the governor and by the Oakland County Health Department.
Mayor Pro Tem Long, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. Mr. Baumann, if I could ask an additional question about the finances for the fair. When one holds a special event, it's certainly true that the tradition is important, but this event has certain fixed costs, which you will have to cover, and then you get revenue from sponsorships and ticket sales. So isn't there a possibility that if attendance is low or very low, that you could risk losing money on this event rather than benefiting the chamber?
Thank you for the question. You're absolutely right. We do have some fixed costs, but under our contract with the fair operator, we have a guaranteed minimum payment to the chamber. And so you're absolutely right. Will we make what we normally do? Absolutely not. But the chance of losing money is very small. The estimates that we have is it might be maybe 50% of the revenue that we normally receive. Having said that, as you can all imagine, this has been a very difficult 2 months for the Birmingham Bluefield Chamber financially. No new businesses are opening, so we're not getting new members. Many of our businesses who have come up for renewal on their membership dues are still closed because of the governor's executive order. We canceled one event already. We've not been able to schedule any events or have any sponsors going forward. And I will tell you that chambers of commerce, local chambers of commerce throughout Oakland County and the state of Michigan are in dire financial straits. And the real risk is, obviously, chambers' goals are to support local business and make them successful. It will be very unfortunate if by the time we do get to a point of reopening, that this support mechanism for local business are all out of business. I know of several of our neighboring chambers who have laid off the majority, if not all of their staffs, have cut all of their programming because they just don't have any revenue coming in. So from our standpoint, if we can put on a village fair that we're proud of and we feel is to the benefit of the community, and if we can do it in a safe and secure way, we're willing to, not be as profitable on it, knowing that we will at least receive some financial benefit from it.
Mr. Baumann, so this sounds like a microcosm of the decision-making that's going on at the state level, balancing economic benefit with public safety. And I do have some additional concerns about the COVID mitigation plan. It's not particularly detailed or robust. And I have some concerns about whether the public distancing that's currently recommended can be accommodated on that site. I mean, it's always been a tight site. Is there really space amongst all those rides to put a child in every other Ferris wheel seat, to clean it in between children riding, and to keep people spaced 6 feet apart while they're waiting in line for rides? It seems like there are just enormous practicalities with undertaking this in a safe manner.
Fair question. All I can go by is our fair operator, North America Midway, which is the largest amusement company in the country. Those are the processes that they've put in place, not only for the village fair, but other areas. The other thing to be considered is, by the time we get to July, there may be a completely different set of rules and standards that we need to face, either more relaxed or more stringent, depending on what happens with, the virus going forward. I'm sure you're aware that just this afternoon, the governor has kind of updated her thinking and is now on Friday morning allowing bars and restaurants and retail operators throughout northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula to open to the public. So all I can say is this. The way that I envision this is that within a few weeks of when we get to that July 9th, we will have a meeting with the fair operator, the city manager, the city attorney, the police chief, the fire chief, the DPS director, and we will sit down and say, okay, this is how we see this happening. Is that something that everyone's comfortable with? And if the answer is yes, and the governor has loosened her restrictions, then we will go one way. If people say, no, we're not comfortable with this, then we'll go in a different direction. I don't see tonight your approval is that we're going to have the village fair one way or the other. I think this is a step in allowing us to continue to explore the possibility as to whether it makes sense to have the village fair in 2020.
Commissioner Hoff, go ahead.
If we approve it tonight, Joe, and decide on July 1st to cancel, are there any repercussions for you with the company that's doing this?
Great question, and thank you for asking that, and thank you for being concerned about the chamber, because that is a consideration. So again, I was waiting for tonight's meeting to take place and a decision being made. Tomorrow, I have a call scheduled with the owner of the fair company where I'm supposed to tell him what the result of the meeting was tonight. And then, Commissioner Hoff, to your point, my very first question is going to be, when are we allowed to pull the plug on the fair without financial repercussion? Because it really isn't in our control. That's the thing. And we totally understand that. This is a public health issue. It's not whether it makes sense to close streets or whatever not. I mean, this is a much bigger issue, and we fully understand that. So that's going to be my first question is, what is the drop dead date as to whether we have to say we're having it or not?
Commissioner Sherman, you had a question?
I did. Thank you. The question was, and I just find my note here. Joe, I appreciate you being here, but the question is, looking at North American Midway's COVID remediation plan, what additional things have you and your staff looked at in addition to what is being proposed by the fair operator? As Mayor Pro Tem Long mentioned, they're not very specific in their recommendations. So what additional steps is the chamber looking to add to assist in the protection of the community's health?
Sure, thank you. I will say that you are absolutely right. It's not very specific. I would say, though, that one of the reasons why is that because this whole situation keeps changing and adapting. And so you can't really have a final plan in place until you know what the restrictions are going to be or what the regulations are. From our standpoint at the chamber, what I envision is we're going to have as many volunteers as we can garnered. Again, realizing that we don't want to place anybody at risk, right? So that's a consideration we have to think about internally. But we would have what I would call guest services, and these people would be charged with identifying where the hand washing stations are, identifying where the hand sanitizer stations are. There would be some kind of markings placed on the sidewalk leading up to a ride that would call for social distancing. And we would have volunteers posted at every ride to make sure that that social distancing was being acknowledged. And so that's how we see it, is that we will just need to have many more people kind of ensuring that whatever things are put in place, that they're actually being followed, because that's always the risk, right? You can have the best plan in the world, but if nobody follows it, it's not a very good plan.
If I may continue.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So another thought would be utilizing the chamber's resources to maybe distribute some type of hand sanitizers, masks, other protective type devices that would assist in keeping the public safe.
Sure. Well, I believe North America's plan already calls for not only hand sanitizer stations, but also hand washing stations. If you're talking about like handing everyone a little portable bottle of hand sanitizer when they enter, those are all items that we can certainly take a look at. I do have to say, though, that there is a cost effect, right? And I think that was more to Commissioner Hoff's point. If we determine that the things that we need to do to make this safe, and that's always the first priority, right? But if it turns out that it's going to be more costly for us to do that than the benefit we're going to derive from having the fair, then that will lead into that decision after consulting with the city officials and the county health department as to what exactly our requirements are. So it's not a question of we're not going to follow whatever recommendations are given. But to your point, Commissioner Sherman, if the list of requirements becomes so onerous, then that becomes part of the equation as to finding out what's the last possible date we can cancel the fair without penalty.
Totally understand. Thank you.
All right. We need some, Commissioner Hoff, go ahead, please.
I just, Joe, want to make a comment. I know that this is an important event for the chamber. I would have appreciated knowing that drop dead date, which will influence our decision. In fact, it may influence your decision. If you tell them yes and you can't get out of it, you have to assure them that you're going to pay them so much money. That would be a factor in your decision on whether to hold it July 7th through the 12th. So that's a big piece of information that to me is very important. On what the drop dead date is, it will affect your decision. It will affect the commission's decision.
Well, Commissioner Huff, all I can say is that, and maybe I misread the resolution, but I believe A or B, I'm not sure exactly how it was presented. There was some mention at the very end that the approval was contingent upon certain requirements being satisfied. And so I kind of saw this as a conditional approval with the idea that ultimately there would be an additional decision made further down the road. You know, we've only been 2 months into this, and if you think about how all of our lives and the world has changed in 2 months, and then if you think about what's happened in the last 2 weeks, that suddenly the big three is back, operating plants. And more and more businesses are open. And now we had the governor's decision today with, Northern Michigan can open restaurants at 50% capacity. Things are happening so quickly that I would love to give you all the information that you want, but we just don't have it. And we don't know, in, let's say, by June 15th, what the landscape's going to look like in Michigan. It could be we're opening everybody up. It could be, the Northern Michigan experiment failed and we've got to go back on lockdown. We just don't know. I thought the intent of this evening was to get almost kind of like a conditional approval from the city commission saying, yes, you were approving your application based on all of these factors and understanding it is subject to final decision by the city officials in the terms of doing their due diligence.
So I don't see any more commissioner comments on that.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear Commissioner Host?
Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Host.
Okay, I have a question, and it's probably for Joe, our city manager. Sorry, Mr. Baumann. What is the drop dead date for us to say that this could happen? Is tonight the drop dead date, or could it be our last meeting in June, or that's not fair to maybe the chamber, but I'm just asking.
Now, the way we set up the resolution is that you would give staff the authority to make that determination based on the status of where we're at that particular time. Simply, similar to what Mr. Baumann was saying, that we would pick a date that we were both comfortable with to make that final call. We wouldn't want to interfere with their contractual obligations, but yet we wouldn't want to get so far along in the promotion of this thing that if we had to cancel it, it would be a problem. So yeah, we would have to pick a date, and then by that date, we would have to come to terms as to whether the city was comfortable allowing this to proceed, or if we make the determination at that time that we would cancel the event, given the concerns with not having a vaccine and not knowing the direction that things are going. There is a big question here as to where things are going to be in July. There's no doubt. So it's kind of hedging his bets if they want to proceed with planning for the event. But in terms of that exact date, we would have to talk as to how that met with their contractual obligations so that they did not get in a situation where they were obligated to pay for things that they would not be producing if we canceled the event. But we would have to, and if he's able to share that information tonight, that would be great. If not, we would have to work on that subsequent to this meeting. And then we would just come back to the commission with whether or not we're comfortable in allowing the event to proceed based on the concerns that were in place going forward.
Well, thank you, Mr. Valentine.
Commissioner Host, you good?
I am. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners comment? All right, Mr. Baumann, as you know, this is it's never an easy decision for us, and I thought that the resolution tonight is we can cancel the event completely, and this is not a easy decision on us, as we know how important the event, especially in Birmingham for a long time. I believe the consensus, and when I gathered and you gathered also, it's still undetermined whether you're going to move forward with it or not, and whether economic impact on you and whether it's going to be profitable or not. But my concern as the mayor, and I guess I speak for every commissioner that spoke earlier, our decision, we have to make everything possible to make sure our residents are safe. That's the whole dialogue right now. And the question that you've been asked before, whether you have all the help, whether you have all the PPE requirements, all the sanitize for every person. And this is not just a Birmingham residents come in also. This people come from the whole entire region. Our concern is just safety of the public. And it's still a lot of unknown coming, whether the state will allow you to do that, whether you're going to have another order from the governor that cannot. So if all what we're asking tonight, I just need also commissioner consensus is just to leave it up to the administrative and you to figure that out later. But our message are unified with safety of the public. And that's literally it, unless I misspoke on behalf of any commissioner that would add something. Commissioner Nikita, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify it sounds like there's obviously more information that needs to happen, and we're a couple months from this event. And I think to Joe's point, any number of things can happen between now and then. So I would say that if it's at all possible for us to not put a final decision on this and actually await further information or clarification on some of those safety issues that we don't know at the moment, that my inclination is to let it play out a little bit further so we have clarity on what exactly the parameters are. And as Commissioner Hoff said, yeah, it would be nice if we had that now, but we don't. So, if the chamber wants to explore this and thinks that they can do something within the parameters of obviously all our safety concerns, then I surely would like to give them as much of an opportunity to prove that as possible. So I guess it's a question of, do we have to, can we postpone or wait until we get more information before we make a final call on this?
Actually, Commissioner Nikita, you can really make it, as we're discussing resolutions here, resolution number 1 will satisfy what you were saying. It's either that means you're really approving the conversation to continue as things progress, and whether then we'll leave it up to the administrative and to the chief and to the state, whatever order comes in, whether to move forward or not. Is that what you meant, Commissioner Nikita?
More or less, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Hoff, go ahead, please.
I think a big factor is going to be when Mr. Baumann talks to the vendor and finds out what the drop dead date is. If they aren't coming to Birmingham July 7th through the 12th, they're going to try and get another location. And I think that's a major deal breaker if they say you have to tell us for certain.
Okay.
And if you're not going to have it, if you cancel for any reason, which may be a reason that this commission feels should be canceled, the chamber may be penalized. And that's something that I heard Joe Baumann say he's going to check tomorrow.
Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Sherman.
One other question for Mr. Baumann. Just out of curiosity, do you happen to know the dates that the fair company has scheduled for the St. Mary's Fair, or have they canceled the St. Mary's Fair?
Good question.
So the fair company did not cancel the St. Mary's Fair. St. Mary's did cancel their fair.
Okay.
Their fair was supposed to be the week this week, actually. The reason why they canceled it, and the owner of the fair company shared the letter with me so I could understand, is the St. Mary's Fair, the carnival is only one component of that entire festival. They have gambling, they've got beer tents, they've got Polish food festival. It literally takes in hundreds of employees. Hundreds of volunteers from the fair as well. It's by and large staffed by North American Midway. And that's one thing that we felt a little more comfortable about, is that we could really, if we needed to, mitigate the use of, outside volunteers. And the fair company has been very good about saying, we can take care of all the trash collection. We can do all those things that you need to have done. I just want to say that, all of you have been around for quite a while. We've been using the same fair company for over 30 years. We've never had a problem with them. I think, if you talk to the police chief and the fire chief, if you talk to, your DPS, they're a class operation, but more than that, they really enjoy being in Birmingham. They've made personal friendships, the ownership of the fair, and, they're not going to do anything that puts their reputation at risk as the largest fair company operator in the country, and certainly not anything that puts anyone in Birmingham at risk. So I just give you that as background that, and like I said, the chamber is 100% committed to safety first. If it's decided that there's not a good way we can do this, that everybody's comfortable with, trust me, I will be the first one on the phone calling North American Midway saying, we're not doing the fair this year. And I will live with the consequences of that because we have such a long-standing relationship with them. So I'm not too concerned about the negative financial impact from pulling the plug. I'm more concerned about, we want to make sure that we can have a fair that everybody feels comfortable with, that people feel safe, and that the city commission in granting approval can feel confident that they made the right decision. That's really what it all comes down to, is we want to make sure that we do what's right for the residents of Birmingham and our guests.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. I think we need to wrap this up. I see a hand from the public. Please address your name. Public?
Mr. Bloom.
Mr. Bloom, is that
here? David Bloom here. Hi.
Go ahead.
We have two comments. We have an agenda item coming up for new business regarding the Dream Cruise and canceling it. And the Dream Cruise is, I think, the second or third week in August, which is maybe a month later than or more than this event. So I would, rather than say we should or shouldn't do this, I would just ask for, and I understand there's a need for advanced planning, that I would just ask the commission to consider and have a dialogue on being fair and reasonable and consistent with the decision making, to consider that other event that you're talking about canceling. I think to allow this and not the other one, I would think there needs to be some discussion about this. We also have a lot of businesses in Birmingham that are suffering severely as well because they can't be open. The other thing I'll point out is, and I don't know how many people are aware of this, if you just go to the USA Today coronavirus map reporting, Michigan has the highest death rate in the United States out of all the other states. It's at 9.5% among deaths over people that are tested. So to have to have a situation where you've got crowds of people going in, and then you've got the Mid-American workers there exposed to those people, and then they're going to another place, I think something like that just should be discussed. And I'm not saying whether or not it should be canceled, but I just like to have a discussion on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. All right, commissioners. Commissioner Hoff, go ahead.
Can I suggest that we don't make a decision on this tonight? And we know the dates that are proposed, and Mr. Baumann is going to contact the company. Can this come back to us so that we can make a decision? If a decision is not already made, I'm just wondering if Mr. Baumann's going to get a comment from them when he talks to them, that it has to be definite. So is that a possibility of waiting till our next meeting to make this decision?
Commissioner Hoff?
Yes, that was a question. Is
Yeah,
that
go.
possible?
I mean, you can take no action.
Well, I'm not sure if we can or we can't. I mean, Mr. Baumann I understand wants to know, but we also want to know, will we have the option of canceling and up until what date?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, it's Joe. Is that all right?
Go ahead, Joe, go ahead.
I don't know what your process is or your procedure is, but if I'm understanding what Commissioner Hoff is asking, if you want to table this to your next meeting or take no action or whatever it is that you do, I can certainly reach back to North American Midway and just say, the city needs to know how far we can go down this path before a final decision has to be made as to whether operationally they can still pull a crew together and stage the fair. Because that's the other, it's not just the chamber, it's them being able to put a crew together to move the equipment to Birmingham and so on and so forth. But if the commission is desirous of me, getting a date certain as to when a final decision has to be made, I'm more than happy to try to do that for you.
Our next meeting, Mr. Bowman, is June 8th.
Okay. And then I guess my concern would be that if the answer I get from North American Midway is prior to June 8th, like if they say we need to know by whatever for their purposes, then I'm not really sure where that leaves this.
Yeah, that was exactly Commissioner Hoff's question.
I think it's a place that I don't like.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Joe. Hold on. Go ahead.
If the commission's desirous of getting more information, we can do that if you approve the first resolution, and we can come back to you with the additional information. There's clearly more information that staff is going to want with regard to the protocols that they're going to have for not only their staff, but for the public. What type of equipment people are going to be utilizing, the more clarity on the cleaning procedures, the sanitizing of the equipment. I mean, there's a lot of detail that's going to have to go into this that we don't have right now. And in addition to just having the date, we would also need to have a very detailed operational plan for this event if this were to proceed. So if you're comfortable in somewhat deferring this, we can have that conversation with the chamber and come back to you at the next meeting with kind of where we're at and what decision we feel comfortable at that time from a staff perspective and whether we recommend this or not. This is going to be somewhat unique in that all of our other events have been effectively canceled through the summer, and this would be somewhat of an anomaly, and things are changing regularly, but we don't have a vaccine yet that's known to cure this, and there's going to be concerns with this spreading if that's the case. And having more clarity on how the plan is going to be implemented to address that, I think is certainly needed. So despite just having a date, I think there's more clarity on an operational plan that has to be presented as well. So if the commission's comfortable with that, we can proceed with the first suggested resolution and come back to you with some detail at the next meeting based on our conversations with the chamber.
Okay, do I see any hands there? Any thoughts? Commissioner Sherman?
As I've sat here and listened to this and thought about this, while I appreciate that the chamber wants us to move forward, it's my understanding that we have already canceled just about every event that the city is involved with. Concerts in the park, the art fair has been moved all the way to the end of the summer. I'm not exactly clear, or I can't even really imagine a plan that would make this any safer or less safe than the Dream Cruise situation, which we'll be discussing later. You have a large group of people coming into the city. They can be coming not only from here, but from other places. And while I don't want to cancel all events, you have to take into account the new norm that we're dealing with. And I'm concerned that this event is not an event that can have an outcome. There's on the whole list of outcomes, the only good one is that we continue an event that's been going on for years. All the rest of them can end up being a negative outcome. So I'm not inclined to approve this motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Long.
I would echo Commissioner Sherman's concerns. Not only has our city canceled almost everything throughout the summer, but so have most other municipalities, Traverse City Cherry Festival, Ann Arbor Art Festival. And this event also has a strong tradition of food consumption, which is an additional concern about people not wearing masks because they want to be consuming beverages and snacks. And even the most robust mitigation plan, especially one that's based on taking temperatures, does not take into account the vast data that exists that temperatures are not a good indicator of whether someone is infected or contagious. I don't think there can be enough certainty that this would not be an excellent opportunity to have a variety of people coming into our city from other states as far as carnival workers and from other cities as far as attendees, and mixing and perhaps having, a very unfortunate outcome that we really don't need to have happen.
Okay, Commissioner Hoff.
I agree, and I do feel that the commission is supposed to take a leadership role in this, and we have canceled many other things. Many other things have been canceled by the city, and therefore, as much as I don't want to do it, because I do want to support the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber, and I know that this is a key fundraising event for them, I just think that this isn't the year for it, especially in view of the dates that were being presented early in July. So based on that, I'm going to make the motion to deny the request from the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber to hold the village fair on July 7th due to concerns of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Long. Comment on the motion from the commissioners? Commissioner Nikita, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it would be good to get more information, but I think the one thing that holds this issue back, because I do think that in a couple of months that we're going to have some clarity as to something like this, and whether or not we're going to be able to hold some types of events safely or not. And I think it's, week after week, we get clearer as to what the parameters are, what the concerns are, and whether or not it's going one way or another. The only thing that I think is unusual in this circumstance, if we move this forward, meaning if we allowed it to happen, is it would be seemingly virtually the only event that actually that we're going to have this summer. I mean, we've already canceled pretty much everything, and my guess is that the Dream Cruise is not going to move forward either. I mean, if I had to put money on it, I think that's going to be another one. So it would be literally the only event that we actually are holding through the summer, maybe outside of the art fair, which that's still somewhat in the works. So. That's unusual to me, and I guess to be consistent. And the problem with that is I don't want any of the other events to feel like there's any kind of special treatment happening for one event over another. We need to be fair, we need to be consistent, and we need to consider safety as priority number one. So I reluctantly would agree with the motion, but I do think that it's unfortunate that we possibly couldn't look at it a little differently. But I think the amount of activities that have happened already this year that have been canceled is too significant, I think, to ignore.
All right. Any other comments from the commissioners on the motion? From the public on the motion? I don't see any hands. Mr. Bowman, do I?
Mr. Hague.
Oh, Mr. Hague, go ahead. On the motion, please, Mr. Hague, and state your name for the records.
Andrew Hague. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
I raised my hand earlier, but brought it back down again. But I just wanted to say I think Commissioner Sherman stated it very, very well. There's only one possible upside outcome and many, many downside outcomes out of this. And the risk benefit does not weigh towards the plus. 2020 is basically a lost year for most things as far as social events is concerned. I think as a general rule, we all need to accept that. I'll be honest, my kids love this fair, absolutely adore going to it. If there's a vaccine tomorrow, we're not coming. It's as simple as that. So I think the motion to treat all events equally, as Commissioner Nikita mentioned, is probably the best thing to do for the public safety right now. And I think the motion as proposed is the only realistic solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hague. Okay, any other comments? So, Mr. Bowman, we thank you. And as I said earlier, it's never an easy decision to do this, but I guess there's a lot of upside doing that.
You need a vote.
And we will, we have a second, right? A motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then we probably eliminate some burden from your shoulders right now. We're making the decision for you, and we're keeping our public safe. With that, please, will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoff,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor.
Oh, he's recused.
Used.
Oh, yep. Commissioner Host,
I'm trying to unmute him.
Commissioner Host, *6 should unmute you as well on a phone.
There we go. And
Can you unmute yourself, Commissioner Host?
the *6.
Can you do *6?
Alex, can he do a thumbs up or thumbs down? As a vote?
Is that okay with Tim?
Yes is okay. Thumbs up for yes, thumbs down for no.
I need to see the thumb. A little lower.
Little lower, Commissioner Host.
I think that's
Okay, good enough.
okay. Commissioner Host said, yeah, aye. Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes. All right. Now we go on new business, unfinished business. Item 5, resolution authorizing the agreement with Creative Collaborations LLC, a cemetery service provider firm, to act on behalf of the city as the service provider to the historic Greenwood Cemetery for a term of 1 year with annual renews. And we have our probably assistant manager, Tiffany Gunter, with us.
I am here. Hi, Mr. Mayor.
The floor is yours, Tiffany.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So at the last meeting on May 11th, we had some discussion about the Greenwood Cemetery Service Provider contract and how to move forward. Staff made, or the Greenwood Cemetery Advisory Board made recommendation to the commission to renew the agreement with Creative Collaborations, a cemetery service provider, to continue with their services into the future. There was some questions at that meeting about the proposed term of the agreement and the 90-day termination provision that was seemingly missing from that agreement. So we've worked with our legal counsel to include that 90-day termination provision information. Do I have an echo? I apologize if I do. I'm not sure what is causing it. Is that better?
Yeah, you might lower your volume, Tiffany. I think we're good with you. Thank you.
You're good. Oh, okay. It's just fine. My apologies. Okay. So we talked about the 90-day termination provision as staff. What we realized was the proposed term of the agreement really wasn't the bigger issue. It was really the termination provision. So those have been included in the draft that's in front of you today. And you can see that language pulled out in the memo. I believe you're on page 70. I can't find my page here. My apologies. It looks like it's page 71 of the commission agenda packet for those following along. And if there are any questions, I'll take them now, but we have adjusted based on the commission conversation last Monday.
Thank you, Tiffany. Any questions from the commissioners for Tiffany? Commissioner Hoff, go ahead, please.
Well, I've received a few calls from cemetery board members who are very emphatic that the term automatic renewals, that this not be automatic. And I see in the agreement you took out automatic. It is not there. So I appreciate that. I know that you are aware of it. In the cover memo that was sent to us, the term automatic renewals was mentioned twice. And I would think that when we say this agreement shall renew annually unless terminated as provided herein, is there any possibility of saying upon review? That's one question. Okay. Can we include the words that it must be reviewed annually? The other that's a question. The other comment that I'm going to make is in the memo from Tiffany on May 11th. There is a nice statement in there that say that the termination provisions will remain per the original agreement by either party by giving written notice to the other party in the event the other party is in breach of any provision contained in the agreement, and such breach is not cured, if curable, within 30 days following delivery of such written notice. This is in the cover memo of May 11th. It seems to me that's an important statement that should be included in the agreement.
Okay. So on those, I'll take your points backwards. So on the termination provisions with respect to the breach of contract, if you're able to, Commissioner Hoff, follow along with me in the packet. The agreement that's in front of you this evening for approval has a statement right up front that number one, that says it's mutually agreed by and between the parties that the documents consisting of RFP, bid form, performance bond, etc., shall be incorporated herein by reference and shall become a part of this agreement and shall be binding upon both parties here too. That statement carries through quite a way. So let me take you on the path here. If you go with me, I believe to page 152 in the agenda packet. Give me 1 second. I've become intimately aware of this document, if you can't tell. If you roll down on page 152, in that clause, this is a letter that was drafted. This is the bid document that was submitted by Creative Collaborations, and that's where the termination provision exists. And under that termination clause, I believe it's item C, item A. That's where you find that 30-day notice with respect to breach and whether or not it can be cured. So all of those, that's considered the bid document, are incorporated into this current agreement by reference. So we can add it in, but I just wanted to make sure that you were aware it is actually in there. And if you look at how this has flowed through from November 21st, that letter, to the first contract, I think that first contract, let me scroll up just a little bit here. If you scroll up to page 143 of the document, you'll see in the agreement that we moved forward back in November, we had that same language. And number two, clause number 2, about those bid forms moving forward and being incorporated herein by reference. So that language still applies in this current agreement.
Well, I'm looking at my materials, which are hard copies, so I don't have the same numbering that you have, so I'm not exactly certain what you're referring to.
Okay, so what I'm referring to are the first contract dated November 21st, 2019, that was approved by the commission. And if you look at item number 2 on the page of that contract, let me know when you get there, you'll see that we talk about that RFP and bid form being incorporated.
Yes.
Okay, so you got that there. And then if you go down a little bit further, as part of that same agreement, you'll see the bid document that came from Creative Collaborations. And in there, there's a termination provision section. It's section 4. Give me just one second. I lost my screen here. I'm going to go back to it. Alex, is it possible to share the screen of the agenda packet to help everyone see the same thing that I'm seeing? I can give you the page numbers.
I can work on pulling it up real quick. Eric is probably faster at it if we can get him the page numbers.
Okay, I'll give you the page numbers when whomever is ready.
I have it, Tiffany, now, but my question on this is, if we're referring to this management agreement between the city of Birmingham and Sherry Arcone, is that what you're referring to? That's how it's identified? The date is November 21st, 2019?
That is the letter, yes.
Well, this section on termination states this agreement will come into effect December 1st, 2019, with an option to renew in May 2020. So does that cover, and I don't see the breach. Oh, yes, the breach. That wording is in this letter from Creative Collaborations to you, November 21st.
Correct.
Is this part of the current agreement that we are approving tonight?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Hobb, did that answer your question?
Well, it should be with it then. I mean, this management agreement should be with the agreement that we are approving tonight.
Okay, understood. So when it references that bid document in that first paragraph, these do attach to automatically, and I don't know how to address that otherwise because we read the bid document.
Okay, and what about my other comment about an annual review?
I don't see any problem with adding on the annual review stipulation. I know with this particular amendment or proposal, we're going to have a 6-month review in December 2020 of operations. There is an annual cemetery board report that's done that definitely can come along with that, including it in the contract. That is something that I guess will be the decision of the commission and left to Tim's ability to add in and incorporate that wording.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Commissioner Sherman.
Looking at this contract, it clarifies the issues that we raised last time, as far as the termination provision and also the time period. As was also discussed last time, whether this contract, originally I had proposed a 6-month contract. The problem, as was pointed out by our contractor, we really don't want to have a situation where a contract is coming up in the beginning of the winter if we were to transition this to someone else. And since really the purpose of this item is whether or not to approve this contract, and then we can give staff direction for things like reviewing the contract, having a report to us in 6 months, November, December, so that we can then make an educated decision on what to do here for next spring, which is really the next time that we should be dealing with this, which I think takes care of the issue that Commissioner Hoff has just raised. So with that, I'm going to actually move the suggested resolution to approve this contract. If there's a second, and then we can discuss the contract itself.
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Long. Awesome. Comment from the commissioner on the motion? Commissioner Host, go ahead, unmute yourself, please. He's giving us thumbs up. That's nice, but I guess I'll speak to Commissioner Host. On behalf of Commissioner Host, I think he's echoing what Commissioner Sherman has said, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we're not.
He's going to have to use signs.
Okay. All right. I apologize, Commissioner Host. We're having technical difficulties with you, so we can't hear you, but I saw your thumbs up, but I need that thumbs when we do the roll call. Any other comments on the motion, please, from the commissioners? I see none. Any from the public? Do you see any hands there?
David Bloom here.
Oh, go ahead, David Bloom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to clarify or make some comments regarding what I had said last week, and this is background information. I had noticed last week on the agenda before the meeting that the cemetery issue was coming up. It was on my own initiative. I contacted George Stern because I know he's very involved with this and has opinions. And I asked him if he knew it was on the agenda, and he said yes. And I asked him what his opinion was. And at that time, he provided it to me. And so I asked him to send me something in writing with regard to his concerns. And so he forwarded that to me. So I just want George is a very important member of the community. He's a volunteer. He doesn't need to be dragged through the mud on anything. And it was my initiative that this happened. And I'm not sorry for what I did. I don't think what I did was wrong. I think bringing it up was the correct thing to do. But this is something that I took upon myself and talked to George, and George did not do anything to reach out to me regarding this matter. Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. Alex, can you please take the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Sherman?
Aye. Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Oh, good. We heard
That audio working.
Oh, fabulous.
Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor?
Yes.
Mayor Boutros?
Yes. Thank you. We move on to a new business, a resolution approving the installation of a stop sign on Benneville at Grant and on Benneville at Edgewood. And we have our operation commander, Scott Gruey, with us.
Yes, good evening, Commission. Commander Scott Gruey here with the Birmingham Police Department. Back in January of this year, we were contacted with a request to install stop signs on Benneville, at Edgewood, and at Grant. We reviewed other similar intersections in that neighborhood over there. And by similar, I mean like a T-style intersection where the street dead ends into another one. Also, other similar intersections in that area had stop signs at this condition. We reached out to our consultant, Fleece and Vandenbroek, and asked that they provided a report and did a study on those intersections to see if a stop sign was warranted at those locations. Those reports were attached with this memo. Ultimately, it did say that based on sightline visibility concerns and distance, that stop signs were warranted at both those locations. This was taken back to the Multimodal Transportation Board in February, who reviewed this and ultimately did make a recommendation that the stop signs were to be installed.
Thank you, Commander Gruey. Any questions from the commissioners to, go ahead, Commissioner Baller. Unmute yourself, please. Commissioner
I
Baller.
was going to move the suggested resolution.
That was good.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Sherman. Any comments? Commissioner Huff on the motion.
Yes, I'd like to ask Commander Gruey, was there any public input on this? Because I always think one of the major factors are the people who live near this intersection. And were there any comments?
So the request from the public actually came into Department of Public Services, and then they forwarded me the concern. Unfortunately, the resident that called in the concern, their information was not recorded for me to contact. However, in doing some of our research, we did find that there was a stop sign on Benneville at Grant. I was able to look through Google Street View and find out that going back as far as 2012, there was a stop sign there. It's believed that during the 2018 repaving of Benneville, that stop sign may have been taken down and not reinstalled. And also, when we look through our traffic control orders, there was no order in place for that stop sign, which is why we had Fleiss and Brandenburg research both intersections to make sure it was warranted at both those. So outside of the original resident that called in, there was no input from residents for this location.
Okay, Commissioner Nikita, go ahead, please.
Yes, to be clear, Scott, so are you saying that on Benneville, as they approach both Grant and to the west as well, both of those had stop signs in the past? Is that what it was?
What I could find is the one at Grant did have a stop sign. At Edgewood, there was not a stop sign.
Okay. If I could continue, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you could.
Yes, so these stop signs are going to stop people on Benneville to go on to both Edgewood and onto Grant, but they're not going to be, there will be no stop sign on Edgewood or Grant, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Just one last thing. I'm just curious about, because we were involved in the last stop sign recently that came and went both ways. I think during the time that we talked about it on the commission, which is I believe it was it North Lawn over by the golf course, the Birmingham Country Club. And
yes, North Lawn at Pleasant was one. There was one put in there as a test.
Right. So I remember that there was a lot of dialogue about that one, and there was, that street has a continuous nonstop situation from Lincoln all the way almost to Southfield, I think. And there was a lot of discussion about whether it helped or didn't help, and in the end, I think there was a lot of there were many comments about how it didn't actually help. How is this different than that, in the sense that if that didn't work, if you will, how are these considered to be different so these will work?
Well, the main difference is the one that was put on at North Lawn at Pleasant was to stop North Lawn traffic at Pleasant. That sign wasn't warranted based on traffic volumes, sightline distance, crash history. And the traffic engineers and through their studies have found that when you put those stop signs in areas where they're not warranted, it tends to increase the speed of traffic on that street. So in this case on North Lawn, we actually did a traffic study before installing the stop sign and one after the stop sign was installed, and found that was true, that speeds did increase on North Lawn. This is different in that Benneville dead ends at Grant and at Edgewood. It's not a through street. So the stop sign is being placed in an area where the driver should be slowing, coming to a stop to make sure that it is safe to proceed. And because of sightline concerns, we don't want drivers that roll through those intersections. We want to make sure they come to a complete stop and that it's safe for them to proceed.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions, comments on the motion from the public? I don't see any hands. Great. Alex, bring it back. Could you please call the roll call?
Commissioner Baller?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Host? Commissioner Host?
Thumbs up.
See the screen though.
Here we go. You got it, Alex?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Huff,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes. Thank you, Commander. Have a good evening. And then now we move to item C. Yep. Oh, item B. Going fast. A resolution approving the following amendments to the sign ordinance. And we have Planning Director Jenna Eckert educate us a little bit about the amendment of the canopy signs and the awning signs and the standard signs.
Actually, Nick Dupuy from the Planning Department is going to take this one since they generally go to the Design Review Board, but I'll be here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Jenna. Hello, Nick. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Jana. Hi, Mayor Boutros, City Commissioners. It's nice to see you all. Of course, I hope you're doing well. This discussion on the sign ordinance amendment involving canopy signs is very similar to our recent discussion on electronic message centers. Every so often, after we get so many sign applications that are reviewed by city staff, the Design Review Board, the Historic District Commission, so some low-hanging fruit begins to appear in the form of a gap in the sign ordinance where we feel only a slight adjustment can really improve the review process for us as city staff, the appropriate review bodies, and actually especially the business and property owners in the city. This particular amendment that is proposed is intended to fill that perceived gap that we feel exists in regards to canopies and awnings. Currently, the sign ordinance only includes a definition and subsequent regulations for canopy signs, which it defines as a sign attached to or hung from a marquee, mansard, canopy, or other structure projecting from and supported by the building and extending beyond the building wall, building line, or street lot line. The sign ordinance also defines the canopy valance and regulates that area at a 9-inch maximum height. As you can see, architecture has evolved in the city, and it's apparent that the sign ordinance does not afford us the appropriate regulations at this time to review, approve, or deny signs on the various designs of that we see of canopies and awnings in the city, as the current definition and regulations are extremely restrictive and seem to actually apply to a standard angled awning. Additionally, the graphics present in the sign ordinance for the canopy signs further handcuffs the sign ordinance in that regard. In summation, the Planning Division is seeking approval from the City Commission to amend Articles 1 and 3 of the sign ordinance to adjust the definition of canopy sign and canopy valance, as well as add definitions of canopy, awning, awning sign, awning valance, awning shed, and finally to amend Table B, permanent business sign standards. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for the presentation. Questions from the commission to either Nick or Jenna? Commissioner Hoff, go ahead, please.
Can you please explain the difference between an awning and a canopy?
So we tried to define, make that distinction in the definitions where we, and I say we as in myself and the Design Review Board, felt that awnings were more angled and had a true valance, the fabric or rigid part that hangs down. And that we tried to confirm by researching all of those different sign ordinances and how different cities around here, mostly, especially with downtowns, define them awnings. And same with canopies. We felt canopies are a little more, I guess they can be a little different than awnings in that the design can vary. They don't have to be necessarily straight standard canopies. They all provide shelter. They could be decorative, they could be functional, what have you. So we wanted to make sure to try and delineate, to make a line between what's an awning and what's a canopy in the definitions that we proposed.
So is an awning always slanted and a canopy is straight?
Essentially, that's what we're saying, yes.
Thank you.
Right. No other questions, I guess, from the commissioners? Commissioner Sherman,
I'll move the suggested resolution.
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Nikita. Any comment on the motion from the commissioners? Seeing none? Any comment from the public on the motion? I don't see any hands. Awesome. Do you? All right. Great. We'll bring it back. Alex, would you please call the roll call, take a roll call vote?
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long,
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor,
Yes.
Commissioner Huff,
Yes.
Yes.
Host,
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes. Awesome. We move on to item C under new business. Resolution recommending the electrical box in the planter on the west sidewalk of North Old Woodward at the intersection of Hamilton Row be painted as a crayon box by local artist and Public Arts Board member Ann Ritchie and local artist John Ritchie. And also the two USB charging stations on the north and south side of the subject electrical box be painted as thumb drives. And we have Jenna speaking, or Nick, or...
Actually, on this one, we have Brooks Cowan, who's the staff liaison to the Public Arts Board.
All right. You brought the whole team, Jenna. Thank you. Go ahead.
I did.
Good evening, everyone. Eric, would I be able to do a screen share? Have that enabled for me?
If Alex can make you a temporary host, yes.
Yeah, I can. 1 second.
Thank you.
Now you have permission.
I'll pull this up real quick. Let's see.
Yep.
No, is that one? Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. Can the rest of the commissioners see it too?
Yes.
Awesome. We're on.
Perfect. So it was about a year ago when the City Commission approved the Public Arts Board's recommendation to paint the electrical box at Merrill and South Old Woodward as a popcorn box. The box was painted by resident and board member Ann Ritchie, and the Public Arts Board has received a number of positive reviews from people around town since its completion. When the popcorn box was approved, the Public Arts Board was also directed to evaluate ways to enhance the terminating vistas as identified in the 2016 downtown plan. And since then, the Public Arts Board has spent a number of meetings reviewing the city's terminating vistas and is preparing a report of recommendations to present to the City Commission. Painting electrical boxes with a pop art theme is one recommendation of their terminating vista report. There's currently 5 utility electrical boxes located in terminating vistas, as indicated on the plan. The board discussed whether or not they want the boxes to be painted thematically with the surrounding buildings and businesses. For example, the first one is popcorn box, which is right next to a movie theater. An old time safe next to Chase Bank was suggested, as well as the Mad Hatter hat next to the Mad Hatter restaurant was suggested as well. But the board determined that doing so could be difficult since the local businesses could be moving in and out. So the board then discussed various themes they could pursue, and there was a general consensus that a pop art theme would be a good guideline, and that it would be fun to make small items look big. And so after some discussion, the board came to an agreement that they all like the idea of a big crayon box for the electrical box at North Old Woodward and Hamilton. They believe it would add some more color to downtown and also provide an interesting conversation piece for that area as well. The board also discussed the USB charging stations surrounding the city benches. It was brought up how not everyone knows what those rectangles are used for. And Ann Ritchie said that while she was painting the popcorn box, Some people actually thought that they were ashtrays. And so this led to another recommendation in the Terminating Vista report that the USB charging stations be painted with an electrical charging theme, such as a thumb drive or an electrical bolt. So in regards to today's recommendation, the Public Arts Board recommends the electrical box in the planter at the west sidewalk of North Old Woodward at the intersection of Hamilton Row be painted as a crayon box, and the 2 USB charging stations be painted as thumb drives as proposed in the attached illustrations. And these public utilities would be painted by local artist and Public Arts Board member Ann Ritchie and local artist John Ritchie. And so looking at the image here, the crayons painted here would be facing the sidewalk and the restaurants, and the crayon sharpener would be facing the intersection of Hamilton Row and North Old Woodward. And with that, I leave it to you guys for any questions.
Thank you, Brooks. Well, now we'll take questions from the commission. Commissioner Nikita.
Yeah, question about the further study of terminated vistas. I mean, I think that was a clear requirement and/or recommendation as part of our 2016 plan. It's always been a notable part of our plan, and we have these particular areas where this is highlighted as important part of the urban design configuration of street, intersection, pedestrian pathway, and all of the above. It sounds like there's a further study underway as to how these could be treated, and that's still coming. Is there a timeline on that, or what's when you said it's in the works and it's already been discussed, but a further report is in the works? What's the timing on that, and what do you foresee on that?
I believe it's nearly ready to go. So the Public Arts Board moved forward with 6 different recommendations to help utilize public art in various ways to enhance the terminating vistas. I believe that given the current climate with coronavirus, that moving forward with just the one electrical painting box could be considered something fun for the summer to add a little more.
It doesn't take us that long to do them, and with the weather, it's all dependent on the weather.
Nope.
Let me introduce you first, if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry.
We have Ann Ritchie with us also, and we have Barbara Heller. But before you speak, if you don't mind, wait for a moment. Let the commissioner comments first the questions to Brooke, and when they're done, we'll let you know if you can speak directly to them. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Commissioner Nikita.
Yeah, just if I could continue. So you're saying that the report has been more or less pulled together, and we would be seeing it in some near future point. Is that what I gather from that comment there?
Correct. And I can touch on any points. I have the recommendations summaries right in front of me if you have further questions on that. So
yeah, if I could just lastly
go ahead, Commissioner Nikita.
Yeah, I just that's fine. We don't have to get into that. It's really not on the agenda tonight. I guess my and I can concur that it's understandably something where we want to get moving on addressing these utility facility or utility equipment boxes in a number of different locations that are obviously highlighted in very important locations in our downtown. I guess I would say that the way I read the 2016 plan and the way I think that it was initiated as this particular element or this urban design component, that we saw it as something that was actually a bit more of a permanent and long-term solution that would really accentuate and give an opportunity for that to be a special condition. And what I see in these treatments, which I think are very pleasant and interesting and well done in terms of the artwork, and I think the one in front of the theater is just fine. But I think that the opportunity and the importance of treating that in a long-term manner is very, very important. And what I wouldn't want to happen is the short-term solution that we're sort of looking at now become a permanent solution. So I would say that it's good that we're moving on what I would consider to be hiding the mistake. And I say that I think having a utility box in this very, very special location is not the thing we should have. Painting it and making it something special is a great way to sort of disguise that. And I think it's fun and interesting, but I think it's more of a short-term solution. And we need to keep moving toward having a much more broad and appropriate solution for long-term. So I hope that the recommendations are thinking along those lines and would give us some direction as to how we would go. And in the meantime, I would consider this to be somewhat of a, if you will, a stopgap or a first phase of addressing the issue, and then ultimately finding our way toward a better solution, which really highlights not only the plan goals, but also some of the artwork that I think the city has access to.
Thank you, Commissioner Nikita. Any other questions to Brooke? From the commissioners? None? From the public? I don't see any. Okay. Any questions for Ann or, Commissioner Baller, go ahead, sorry.
I want to comment on it. I don't necessarily have any questions, so I don't.
Go ahead, you can comment.
Whenever it's appropriate.
Okay. I think we if you don't have any question for Brooke, nobody else have question for Brooke, I guess. Let's see, no. Anyone else have a question for? Well, let's go. Go ahead, Commissioner Baller.
Well, I certainly appreciate the work of the Public Arts Board, being someone who appreciates art and has a stepdaughter who's an artist. I appreciate their work, and I have to say that in this case, I don't. I have a few comments. I guess I don't support this for a variety of reasons. First, while I like pop art, I like it in small doses, and so the addition of at least 3 pieces of pop art, and then more if we go back and forth on the new. If we put the charging stations on Maple, is a lot. I went over there yesterday and sat across the street looking at the terminated vista. And, I think of terminated vistas, the kind of things you see all over Cranbrook. They're clean. There's a real focal point. And right now that's a clutter. It is, I should hasten to point out, a historic district. And those buildings are all designated as historic. And if a building owner wanted to do anything to the facades of their buildings, they'd have to go probably before 2 city boards, the Historic District Commission and the Design Review Board. So I think if the city's doing stuff like that, it at least is worthy of a courtesy review by those boards. We just approved an amendment to a sign ordinance that said, and I quote, signage for the purposes of, it talks about regulating signage for the purpose of reducing visual clutter and preserving the architectural character of buildings and streetscapes. So I think it's important. I think we should be doing everything we can to foster the improvement of that streetscape there, which, there are parts of it that are really nice. The Starbucks building is gorgeous. there are other elements of it that are not quite so gorgeous, and so I think that right now the way that box is painted green, it kind of just goes away, which is where it ought to be. And so I just think that the commission was presented with this. I actually didn't get my packet until Saturday morning, didn't look at it till Saturday afternoon, and here we are like 2 days later. I just think even if I had more time, I'm not sure I would approve of it, but I think we haven't been given enough time to look this over, and not enough people have weighed in on it. So that's my position.
Thank you, Commissioner Ballard. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Long.
Thank you, Mayor Boutros. So I was on the Parks and Rec Board when we reviewed the popcorn box project for the painting the electrical box in front of the movie theater, and it is a delightful execution. I commend the Arts Board and the artist. But that popcorn box has a kind of a contextual relationship to the movie theater. It introduces the idea that you're in front of a movie theater. It reinforces the marquee, and it makes sort of a coherent sense as to its subject matter. And I have a concern that the crayon box doesn't necessarily do that, and it doesn't really have a relationship to its surroundings in that location in the historic district. And I also have a bit of a concern about the painting the charging stations as thumb drives, because I'm not sure that says still that those are charging stations, because a thumb drive is a storage device and not a charging device. And I'm wondering whether maybe the Public Arts Board couldn't come up with some creative signage that just identifies those charging stations as charging stations and give even more clarity to the community about their use.
Commissioner Hop.
My recollection of when we first discussed this and the popcorn box, which I think is very cute and looks good to me. And I do like the crayon box very much, but I think that we were talking about a theme that would run through all of these type of projects. And the theme that I'm hearing that the Public Arts Board came up with is pop art. And so each electrical box that they paint, from what I'm hearing, will be something in pop art. Well, I'm not sure that that's the direction, or that we're all in agreement that that's the direction. And so I'm wondering, did I get this wrong, that there was going to be an overall theme, or at least discussion on a theme? And that's where I thought we left it.
Is that you, Joe? Go ahead. 1 second. Go ahead.
Yeah, simply just to address Commissioner Hopp's comments. Yeah, the last time this was addressed, it was in the context of looking at a single location, with the understanding that the rest of the locations would be evaluated, and there would be a plan presented back to the commission on how the rest of the terminating vistas would be addressed in more of a comprehensive approach. This, I think, is more of an interim step that's been advanced. But to your point, Commissioner Hoff, this was intended to come back as more of a comprehensive plan for the commission to consider going forward.
Thank you, Joe, for clarifying that. I guess let's hear more from the commissioners. Commissioner Sherman.
So based on what our city manager just stated, and in furtherance of Commissioner Hoff's comments, it would seem to me that we should wait on this, let it come back as a full plan, and then we can make a decision as a coherent project, as opposed to piecemeal.
As a comprehensive plan, right, Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Clear? Yes. Okay. All right. Commissioner Hoff again. Go ahead, please.
And the comprehensive plan that you offer, that the Public Arts Board offers, could be pop art with a list of different objects that you'd like to see so that we can discuss it. But rather than doing things one at a time, I'm just thinking that it would be better to get an idea going for a theme or an overall, well, I keep saying theme, but that's what I mean, a decision on how we should move forward.
Consistency, if I may help, or so, Commissioner Huff.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other commissioners comment? I believe, Commissioner Nikita, go ahead.
Yeah, just a follow up on my earlier comment, because I think it goes along with this, with the comments that I'm hearing. The overall plan or the intent of where we're going with this, whether it be a series of pop art issue or art interventions here and there, it also goes to the point of where are we going with this longer term, and I think that's the issue that I initially brought up. Whereas if we step back and have not only a comprehensive view of whether it's pop art or some other theme, but also have a clearer idea of what we're looking at as a long-term solution, that would also help us in terms of a timeline. Because I think this, as I said, I consider these painting of these boxes kind of a stopgap until we have something more pronounced, probably more involved, and likely more expensive, meaning there might be some costs that we would have to budget for and what have you, to do something permanent that will be there for 20, 30 years or whatever it would be, or at least the framework for art to be used in time. Sculpted pieces, we talked about a number of different things. So I guess having a little bit of a clarity as to not only the comprehensive view of whatever is being initially thought of being this pop art for right now or something else, where it's going, what it would be, and then what is the alternative long-term option. I think that would be helpful to at least have those presented to us so we understand what the Arts Board is thinking, and then we can have a better idea of how we would proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner Nikita. All right, any other comments from the commissioners? I think we'll take this as the consensus we gathered. I echo Commissioner Baller, Nikita, Hoff. I think we're all, and Sherman and Mayor Pro Tem, we're all in agreement that to have a comprehensive plan to come in front of us, to be consistent of the work that we're doing, and also Commissioner Nikita's point where the long planning for us more than just a short term and a fix. But I appreciate the local artists. I appreciate the public art boards, and thank you for being here with us, Barbara. But I think at the same time, I think we don't want to take any action on this tonight, and they'll hopefully bring some comprehensive plan to us, and we'll move from that point on.
Can I make a comment here, or?
Absolutely, you can. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things, first of all, thank you very much. We really enjoyed doing the popcorn box. And I think that what the government needs to know here, what you all need to understand, is when we were doing this, I cannot tell you the amount of residents, walking dogs, walking by, just going shopping, that would stop and say, oh my God, I love this so much. It makes our family happy. We've been keeping an eye on it. We enjoy it. So I think we have a lot of, there's a lot of joy that comes from some of this stuff. Now, the pop art isn't really the term we were using when we were discussing this. It was more of a nostalgia. And given to your point, could it be something more, a crayon box? Yeah, it doesn't. It's in front of some restaurants. But if we do something more permanent with these boxes, other than just leave them green, they still are working mechanisms. So they have to be, we could do it was suggested to us not to do any kind of a sculpture because, like on the popcorn, we were going to do sculpture on the top, but it, might get destroyed. So because they have to open these boxes and utilize them. But I think it was important for me to let you know that your citizens loved it. And we were there for about 3.5 weeks painting it. And it was nothing but, we had the same people coming by, bringing us coffee. It was great. They loved it. So we understand, the comprehensive, and I thought we had done that. And I agree with the comment about the USB. We had a couple of different options that had like a lightning bolt or some sort of electrical or some kind of symbol, and it has the City of Birmingham logo in the center of it. Now, if you notice on the popcorn box or on the crayon box on the back, the crayon does say City of Birmingham and all. We customized it. So, your decision's your decision, but your public loved it. So I just thought you should know that.
Thank you, Ann. I think everybody loves art. Trust me. We all love, but we appreciate your work. It's different situation we're here, but thank you for your comment. I appreciate you.
No problem. And Barbara's there too, if she has anything.
Is there anything you want to add before I'd like to move on to the next item on the agenda?
Well, we do have a long-term plan, but we weren't actually. The painting of these types of boxes happen in lots of different cities. And if you go to Pinterest, there's a ton of them. And we were not thinking of these boxes as being something temporary. But we do have other ideas. It's just that we wanted to get at least this one done this summer, because we don't think doing 2 this summer would be a great idea. But we do have a long-term plan, and we do have a list of every single one and recommendations and priorities. But I guess it hasn't gone to the commission yet.
No, well, hopefully we'll have everything, like we said, on a comprehensive plan moving forward. And we will bring back art. All right? Promise you. All right, thank you so much. With that, we'll move to item D.
Make a comment, please.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Mr. Bloom.
Thank you. I can't help thinking back after listening to this discussion what Duwani said when he was here about the library and talking about the future of our city and just talking about trying things. And if they don't work out, we can go back and do something else. And how we, for Maple Road, we narrowed the road with paint and we tried it out before we actually physically narrowed it. This is an $800 expenditure. And if the city wants to, I say we move forward with it. I will volunteer to pay for the painting materials if the artist volunteered to do the painting. And if the city comes back later and they want to paint it something else, I'm okay with that. That's fine. But let's just get it painted and see how it works. And in the spirit of Duwani and experimentation and trying to add some color to downtown Birmingham. So I'd like to make that offer.
We didn't charge you the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom.
Well, I'll pay for the paint. So,
all right, let's not have a discussion, please. All right. So with that, any other public comment? Awesome. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll move on to item D. Resolution amending the existing agreement with DRV contractors to allow them to complete repair and rehabilitation project in the 5 city parking decks as detailed in the May 2020 cost proposal. And we have our assistant manager, Tiffany, presenting on that.
Yes, I'm still here, Mr. Mayor. So yes, we're talking about 2 separate resolutions. There's an and there where we'll be amending both the DRV contract as well as the WJE contract for oversight of the proposed work. So just a little brief history. We had a commission meeting on April 20th where we talked about the slab edge repairs that needed to be made on the North Woodward garage. facade project. And as part of that conversation, it was sort of mentioned that while we have this gift, I believe the wording was, of low occupancy in the structures, what other work could potentially be performed so that we could minimize disruption to the downtown as we get to a point of reopening. And so what we did was we followed that instruction. DRV is the contractor working at North Old Woodward, and WJE is currently in the process of finalizing the structural assessment of all 5 of the garages. So we put them together in some conversations and tried to figure out what was the low-hanging fruit and most meaningful projects that we can move forward in a reasonable amount of time so that we can increase safety, make sure that our repairs were being addressed in a timely manner, and when we reopen, have a better looking infrastructure. So that's exactly what they did. Last Friday, the Advisory Parking Committee met to talk about those proposed improvements. And I do have on the line with us this evening is Derek Veter from DRV and Matt Lewis from WJE to answer specific questions about the project, but just wanted to go over a couple of these items. What I wanted to make clear sort of upfront is that none of these are in conflict with what's going on with the current structural assessment. These are all projects that would have been first phase projects that would have come out of that. And that assessment is expected to be completed by June and moving with the being heard by the Advisory Parking Committee for our short-term, middle-term, and long-term repair and rehabilitation program for all of the parking decks in our downtown. So this is definitely in conjunction with that. It is not in conflict with that. So these projects, by and large, are meant to address issues like loose concrete in each of the decks, stair tower repairs where we have a lot of trip hazards. We anticipate that the stair towers will experience a lot more usage than they already do now due to some of the social distancing measures, and people won't want to be in elevators with others. So we want to make sure that those stairwells are in great condition as individuals, as our downtown users begin to utilize them more frequently. It also addresses the repairing the remaining drain and plumbing issues. That's not reflected in the documents you have there, but DRV is working in conjunction with the Nelson brothers who have been dealing with the plumbing issues at Pierce. And once DRV goes to install the necessary drains, Nelson brothers will be coming in to do the necessary plumbing work that wasn't addressed in phase 1 of those repairs that have already been completed. So that is definitely consistent with all of those findings so far from WJE. There's some proposed lighting work at the Chester structure, the North Old Woodward structure, and at Peabody for the stair towers only, that we can increase sort of the visibility and that perceived safety with lighting in those areas as well. Specifically at North Old Woodward, you'll see one project that deals with those internal braced precast panels. We talked about that on April 20th when I believe the question was posed, are there any other change orders we expect to see coming forward on that project? And this was mentioned. We did not have pricing at the time because we did not yet have a plan for how those, we call them fins on the second floor, would be addressed. And now we do have that, and that's included in that pricing document that's in front of you now. Other projects really focus on trip hazards, deterioration of any of the concrete or corrosion throughout the garages. And all told, for the DRV work, we're at $506,000 in repairs. And for that project oversight, it's about 10% of the total project cost, which is consistent, we believe, with industry standard. And that is, bear with me while I scroll, $56,600. Each of these will be coming from the building accounts and the parking enterprise fund, and can support the work that's being proposed in the very near term. We looked at the timeline for the project. It's anticipated that if we're able to go with DRV full throttle throughout all the decks simultaneously on many of the projects, that this work can be completed within 2 months. Many of the projects aren't overwhelmingly disruptive to the parking spaces. So as we begin to reopen, we can definitely pull back a bit on the how aggressive we want to be to make sure that we have sufficient capacity to support whatever the downtown needs are going forward. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Mr. Mayor, and answer any questions anyone may have.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Commissioners, any questions for Tiffany? Commissioner Baller, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work that's being done, and it all looks good. I do have a concern about the lighting. There's about $150,000 worth of lighting for stairwells in 3 or 4 of the decks, and while I trust the engineers with the structural stuff, when it comes to aesthetics and matters such as lighting, I would prefer to have architects and designers involved in something like that. And so I would just recommend that we temporarily put a hold on the lighting part and get some expert opinion. Once we put that stuff in, it's going to be there for a long time. I'd like to know that the fixtures are aesthetically appropriate, and that the lighting especially is appropriate and pleasing to people. We want people to use our decks, and something as subtle and maybe even unconscious or as harsh lighting can be a real turnoff. So I don't think it would take long for a lighting designer or architect to take a look at this. I wish we had a full architectural review committee. We don't. I think an applicant for that committee is on my screen here, and he'll be willing to comment. And so, otherwise, I'm all for it. Thank you, man.
You got it. Any other comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Huff, go ahead.
Yes. First, I have a couple of questions for Tiffany. You said that the total cost is $563,580, and it would be coming from the Parking Enterprise Fund. What is the current balance in that fund? If I recall, it's many millions. Is that correct?
Yes, the reserve is approximately 20 million in reserves currently.
Okay, so $500,000 to repair the structures is doable.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, and then my second question is, what is this other study that's going on? You said in a structure assessment. What is that?
So, let's see. Towards the end of last year, around, I believe it was November, don't quote me on that completely, we started looking at, actually even before then, we began a process to review all 5 of the parking decks from a structural integrity perspective. We engaged WJE, engineers and architects, to conduct that study. We have been in the process of moving that may have been September. We've been in the process of moving that study forward for several months. Unfortunately, it got slowed down, obviously, with the winter months. There's a requirement that you don't have frozen water when they're trying to do some of the sounding evaluations and understanding where the corrosion exists within the slabs. And now that we're having warmer temperatures, they're able to complete the last elements of that work. They've done 3D scans of the pier structure to rebuild basically the blueprint, because we did not have the original or the as-built designs. They've been working on this study to give us what we are looking for, and that is a full comprehensive repair and rehabilitation program for the structures. What we were doing prior to that, and actually prior to my onboarding, was the structures were sort of on a cycle of repair. So every 2 years or every couple of years, you would look at Pierce and say, okay, we did levels 1 and 2 this 5 years ago, we're going to do levels 3 and 4 this year. And then we would kind of continue that cycle throughout the garages. But as they age, we're recognizing that some of the effects of that age do not allow for just sort of a a repair and rehab program that's not more surgical in nature, if you will. And so that's why we began the study. And in June, we plan to present that to the Advisory Parking Committee for review. And that will help us understand what the impact will be on the enterprise fund long term and how we will manage our structures going forward.
You may continue, Commissioner Hobb.
Thank you. But wouldn't it be important to have that information before we approve this, the repair and rehabilitation projects?
Absolutely. So what I was alluding to, but I wanted to make more clear now, based on your question, is that WJE is the firm that is completing that assessment. A majority of that document is completed. We have this last piece that needs to be added in to give us the full report. And so WJE worked with DRV to look at where the low-hanging fruit projects were that we could see and know that can be attempted, completed, and will make a big impact, a big difference in the garages now based on their initial findings. It's just that draft report isn't yet complete. It is not in conflict with the report. None of the proposals here this evening are in conflict with that report. They are in tandem with that anticipated report.
But isn't a lot of this cosmetic as opposed to the other report will be structural?
They're both. I mean, the loose concrete, I wouldn't attempt to call that one cosmetic. We don't want any falling debris in the structures whatsoever. The reason why we're accelerating this, truly, the impetus came from the April 20th meeting where it was discussed. We have low occupancy in the garages now, and what projects can we attack while we have this gift of low occupancy? And that is the reason we're talking about this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Nikita, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a question, Tiffany, on the on the scope here, and maybe it's part of what you just answered, but I want to be clear. We're looking at $500,000 for all 5 decks here, and $100,000 for Peabody, $100,000 for Pierce, $115 for Park. About 40 for Chester, which is our most recent deck. But the most amount of this 500 is going to the North Old Woodward deck, which I think probably the deck that is in worse shape than all of them, and it's continuing to cost more and more money. Obviously, we've already approved $600,000 to keep it safe from falling apart. We've added another $150,000 on top of that just a few weeks ago. So we're at $750,000 on the North Old Woodward deck now. We're adding $150 tonight if we approve this. So we're closing in, or near $150, about $140. So we're closing in on $900,000 on that deck for improvements. And I brought this up the last time when we looked at the $150 that we added a few weeks ago. I know of a number of other issues that I don't believe are being addressed in this package. So I guess I want clarity as to, for one that comes to mind, and I'm wondering if there's any more that are part of the package that's being looked at. But the column capitals are in one of the floors, the top floor, I think, and a couple of the floors. The column capitals, at least the ones that are facing Old Woodward, are decayed quite a bit, and they've started to break apart. So there's the reinforcement steel that's exposed, and that's likely going to have to be addressed in some manner. So is that not included here, just to be clear? And is that for one an item that will be coming in forward in this extra or next level of study that's underway?
Okay, I don't believe that it is, but I'm going to defer to WJE and DRV, who are more intimately aware of those particular columns. Matt or Derek, do you want to address that question?
Yeah, sure. This is Matt Lewis from Wish Jenny Elster. Yes, there certainly are items that we've seen at North Old Woodward, although I will say for all of your garages, they're in very good shape considering their age, and we were very glad to see that. So, I mean, that's kind of the general consensus of our overall condition assessment at this point. The work that we're going to be doing with the concrete sounding is going to tell us a little bit more about kind of some of the conditions that we can't see. But yes, to your point, things like column capitals that are cracked or where there's any kind of loose concrete. I mean, if that concrete is loose, that will be addressed in what we're kind of calling this clean and pick phase or this knockdown phase to get it off it. But that really just goes as far as removing any loose concrete that could potentially be fall down and hit a car or hit a person. You know, any loose concrete that gets removed will be repaired fully when the full package comes out. So yes, but any other conditions that we see, and again, this initial set, I'm kind of calling a preliminary set of repairs, is just to address some things that we can do quickly, you know, which DRV has experience doing. You know, we have experience seeing this type of construction and not having to go through kind of the full process yet of putting together construction documents and specifications to address kind of some of these simpler items. But that would be the reason for our oversight involvement is to be out there and to work with DRV and to see what they're doing and make sure that it's consistent with, you know, what we expect were that to be part of this full package.
If I could just clarify, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner Nikita.
Yeah, thank you for that bit of information. So the areas that I'm seeing, which is this column, the top of the column, to be clear, what the column capital is, there's actually not a capital. It's just the top of the column, but I'm just calling it that. That will be cleaned up, and meaning that we're gonna take away in this cleaning up of any repairs or knocking out of any loose concrete. That'll be taken care of in this package. But any repairs for that or to as needed to cover up or to address the exposed reinforcement steel and what have you is still to come, among potentially other things. Is that what I'm gathering? So bottom line is we get to look forward to another meeting with you sometime soon that will have another price tag connected to it.
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. All right.
If I can speak for a second as well. I think to Commissioner Nikita's point there, I think the precast he is speaking of is going to be removed and then replaced. These are the comments that he had at the last meeting in regards to that same precast, which in this proposal is going to be gone and replaced with the intermediate full height post.
Okay.
So that will be repaired 100%. Those items, if I think what you're saying and what precast you're speaking of, those are the items that we discussed in the previous meeting, and those are being handled in this proposal.
All right, Mr. Mayor, if I could just clarify that comment. I don't want to get into a discussion, but I have to clarify that comment. So just to be clear, I didn't see the repair, and it's not a precast situation. If I remember, I think it was poured in place concrete and with reinforcement steel underneath it. So it was spalled or it's spalling now, and you're going to clean up the concrete that's falling down. But in this package, you're actually going to effectively rebuild the column and clean that up. I mean, it's not something I saw in this packet, but I may have missed it, I suppose, but I didn't see that as part of the scope of work. But you're saying that would be included in this package?
If that column you're speaking of is the same column that I'm thinking of, yes, it is.
They're on the first and second floor, Commissioner Nikita, what he's referring to, those internally built.
Okay, yes. That's fine. I don't want to get into the weeds, but I want to know what we're getting for the cost of what we're paying for here and what will be included. And I know there will be likely more, but that's one thing that I know is something that needs to be done, and I hoped it would be in this package. So thank you,
Commissioner Nikita. I may add to your answer. I think if you look at page 2 on the paper agenda, with the Northold Woodward Garage, it specified $138,000 on the mid column, and then the last column, it says the description of what that covers, mean the removal of loose concrete, floor, drain concrete, stair, tower repairs, stair tower lighting, and also that, if that, I'm answering your question maybe, and internal precast panel removal and replacement. So it specifies it right there. Is that really what you were questioning, kind of, or?
Yeah, again, I didn't think that was precast, but that may be what's included. But that's fine. I mean, okay. I think it's it may or may not be what I'm referring to, but I think that definitely needs to be repaired at some point. So if it's not in this package, it's going to have to be in the next one. But it needs to be repaired. We're chipping it away. It's exposed. It's going to have to be addressed. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Mayor Pro Tem Lund, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to see that we're going to be improving the condition of the stairwells in 3 of the decks, because that's certainly been the subject of concern by many residents, and improvements to make them safer and cleaner and more welcoming are important. As Commissioner Baller said, to encourage especially transient parkers to feel comfortable in the decks. But I'm struck by the difference in the way we handle public projects and what we ask for private developers. If a project of this nature was in front of the planning board, we would have been asking for cut sheets and samples of the lighting and paint colors, and a full complement of information that allows a decision to be made that includes aesthetic concerns. And I believe to address that disparity, the city did establish the Architectural Review Committee. I would like to see that the applicant who has applied gets a hearing about whether he might be appointed to that committee. And I would recommend that the Architectural Review Committee be able to weigh in on the lighting, because it is a relatively easy way to improve people's experience of the decks, so that they are perhaps more modern, more welcoming, more inviting, and not just an engineered utilitarian solution, which from a lighting standpoint might be certainly adequate, but this is Birmingham, and I think we can go a little bit farther and do a little bit better.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Commissioner Baller?
I'll make a motion if there's no comment from the public.
Any questions from the public? No.
There is one, I think.
Let me see.
I think he has to unmute himself.
And please introduce yourself, as I don't see you in my screen.
Oh, Michael Porras.
Oh, sure. How you doing, Michael? Sorry about that.
That's okay. This isn't the easiest thing for everyone.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I read the proposal for the parking garages, and I think it's a great idea to renovate them, to work on making them safer, fixing the spalled concrete and all those things. Fixing the drains so that there's not, so people aren't slipping and falling, making the stairs safer, and assuming that that's what this proposal says, that it's not just removing the bad concrete, but it's also patching and repairing it as well, which is what I think I'm hearing, then I totally approve that. The lighting, is the way I read this proposal, it says the contracting firm is responsible for the design. And it's not clear to me who is approving that. So the light fixtures is something that some people have brought up. The light fixtures that are there are probably fluorescent lights. There's been and continues to be advances in LED lighting that blows our minds. And this is an opportunity to really improve the lighting and the aesthetics of the garage, both from what you would see outside and inside. I just would want to make sure that there's light calculations that are done so that it's the right amount of light, and that they're fixtures that are not blinding us when we look at it, and may actually make the garages look better. So I guess is the proposal, the way it's written with the contractor doing the design, who approves that? Is there a point where someone mentioned cut sheets where someone comes back with what those fixtures are, where they're going, that the light levels been looked at? Is it coming back to the commission? Who is that going to, or is that going to happen?
Okay, thank you, Michael. Let Joe, you want to answer that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At this point, given the nature of this project, I mean, we're not working under building a new structure here. We're working under the guise of getting this completed while we have the opportunity of having light utilization. So we're moving forward at somewhat of an accelerated pace, if you will. And that's why this process is being advanced in this manner. The opportunity to review these sheets would be done internally. At this point, we could bring it to the Architectural Review Committee if there's sufficient time to do so. I would agree that there is certainly a higher standard here, but I know there were spec sheets that were provided as part of their submittal. And the idea that, they're proposing the lowest possible standard, I don't think is the case. But certainly we can look at that further. And if we have the opportunity to include the Architectural Review Committee, I'm certainly happy to do that. But again, I think the opportunity here is with the timing to move this forward so that we can get this structure back up and running in a time frame by which we're going to need it. So there may be some opportunity here to allow the Architectural Review Committee to opine on that. But at this point, we would be planning to move forward as quickly as we can. So again, it's a timing issue, and maybe the DRV folks can speculate or elaborate on how much or a little bit more in the detail of the spec sheet in terms of what they're proposing for the lighting to provide some clarity to this issue.
Yes, if I may.
Thank you, Joe, for that.
And if Derek can speak.
Mr. Mayor, Derek Vitor with DRV.
Go ahead.
These are all stairwell parking structure lights that we have put in place in other structures throughout the state. Just recently, U of M, Mott Community College up in Flint, we just replaced over 100 of these lights 2 years ago. Last week up at the city of Lansing, these lights were in their parking structures. We would provide cut sheets and finishes and everything for you to decide on. This is the light we want in there. We can do that for you, no problem.
Thank you. Commissioner Sherman, go ahead, please.
So based on that, what if we moved everything except the lighting forward?
Or you Commissioner Sherman.
I'm sorry?
Or you can move the resolution as is with directions to the staff to bring back the lighting for our approval.
Exactly. But what if we moved everything forward except the lighting and then had staff bring back the lighting at a later date?
That's fine.
Yeah, Commissioner Waller, go ahead. That's what
I'd go a little further and ask staff, instruct staff to hire a lighting designer to take a look at it. And that's what I would like to hear. We're not talking about a lot of time and effort, but we're talking about professional opinion.
Yeah, I just want the commission to understand this is the perfect time really to move fast, just to maintain and to repair, as we are unfortunately during this unprecedented time. We have low visitors, have low traffic for these parking decks. So I just want to put that food for thought for you guys, that it's very crucial that the faster we do this, the better. Not to say that we cannot hire a lighting designer, or maybe Matt or Derek can also give us options if they have. I don't know what that would be, but I see some hands too. Commissioner Nikita, I'd like to hear your comment.
I think that's a motion, correct? that's a motion on the table? Is that?
Yes, I did make a motion.
And I second that motion. And I'll just say that I would just include in the comments, and if we have to revise the motion, I would say that we just, if at all possible, we would have the Architectural Review Committee take a look at the intention of these lights and see if there's any issue with that in terms of addressing proper light levels as well as appropriate design for the needs of this. But I recognize during the COVID time, we want to move on getting some of these things done before we start having a busier downtown. This is a time sensitive issue, and I completely understand and agree with the aesthetic importance, as with everything. As an architect, I would, but also understand that we already inherently respect that. But I would say that if we can include the Architectural Review Committee, that would be, I think, appropriate. And I would definitely suggest that to be part of the process for approval for the lighting. But I'll second the motion and with those comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Nikita. Is the motion clear, Commissioner Sherman? Because sorry, I cut you off with directions to the staff. I just want to make sure we're clear on the motion.
Well, I thought the motion was clear, but I just want to make one thing clear. And I don't disagree with Commissioner Baller and a lighting designer and things like that, but that would have to come back to the commission for approval as far as actually hiring that lighting designer. So rather than doing that as a starting point, what I would suggest is taking it to letting staff come back to us. And if they're saying, you know what, we ought to have a lighting designer look at it, they can solicit bids to have a lighting designer look at it.
I think we're all speaking the same language then. Commissioner Baller.
Yeah, kind of, but not really. We don't really have an architectural review committee. We have a committee of one. And I don't feel comfortable asking that person to opine on this. I don't think that even if we did have a committee, it would take time to get them together and get them to meet and get them to give us their opinion, while you could pick up the phone and buy an hour of time of a lighting designer. It'll cost you less than whatever we have to approve. And I still believe that that's the way to go. So if that's the direction and that's the motion, I'm all for it. If it's leaving it at the discretion of the administration, who to ask, or that it's asking an architectural review committee that does not functionally exist, I would be opposed to
it. Commissioner Hoff.
I have a question about the lighting. I see that it is going to be, the fluorescent light fixtures are going to be removed and replaced with LED fixtures in 3 of the structures. May I ask, what about the other 2? What about Park Street and Pierce?
Yes, Park Street and Pierce had an LED package come out many years ago where those were replaced.
Oh, they did. They already have the new light fixtures.
I believe they did, yes. All lights in those 2 structures were replaced with LED.
Well, why don't we just use whatever we have in those 2 in the other 3?
This light is very similar to the one in Park.
It is. What you're planning on putting in is similar to what we already have.
Correct.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, ladies, we have a motion and seconded it. Will the any other comment? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
On the motion, please, Mike.
Yeah, I just want to comment that I understand the rush, but it does take time to order lights. Different lights have different costs and have different different delivery times. So, you are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's worth taking a little time to really make thoughtful decisions on this. That does not take a lot of time. It's literally a few hours to review lighting selections, make sure that the lighting levels are right. So I do I think that's very important. The advances in lighting are amazing. So every LED is not the same. And lighting designers, Bob White and specifically is one we work with on a consulting level, and literally we'll show him what we're looking at, we'll show him the intention, and he'll come up with something that he's used somewhere in the world that's, better and cheaper and available. And I really think it's important to get it right.
Thank you. Of course. Okay, bring it back to the commission. I guess we'll time to call the vote.
Okay. Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Ballard?
No.
Commissioner Hoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
I think we lost him. I don't even see him on the screen.
It looks like he's on the phone.
Commissioner Host, can you hear us?
He's muted again. I can't unmute him. What is it? Star six? Star six.
Commissioner Host, if you can please dial *6 on your phone and speak, and we'll let you know if we can hear you. Okay, we might have, I'm not sure how to do this. Tim, Joe?
We'd have to move on if he's not able to participate.
Okay, if he's not able to participate, I think we're gonna move on with the.
I still have to call you Mayor Boutros.
Yeah, yes. All right, that we move on to item E under new business, resolution requesting the cancellation of the annual Woodward Dream Cruise event for 2020 due to public health and safety concerns attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic, and encouraging the promotion of the cancellation of the event by WDC to the public. And I think I will pass it on to our city manager, Joe Valentine, for a little background.
Thank you, Mayor. This item, like the other items we discussed earlier with regard to events in the city, has now come into question in regards to the current environment we're in and whether having events of this scale are appropriate at this time. This event, unlike the other city events, is actually run through an organization of multiple communities, along with some private sector partners and a management company, along with representatives from Oakland County. Given the nature of this event running through multiple jurisdictions, there's a board that runs the promotion of the event. Current discussions with that board with the communities has come to an inconclusive result in terms of canceling the event. And I think it's appropriate at this point for the communities to have a voice to voice their position on this. And given the consistency with other events in the communities that are being canceled, with this event drawing in over 1 million people during a summer period where we're going to have an ongoing pandemic, it seems appropriate to cancel the event. Now, we want to be clear about the recommendation in terms of what we're saying here. The resolution before you is to effectively request the cancellation of the event for 2020. It's also to request the cancellation of any promotion of the event for 2020. The one thing that you're not going to stop is people that want to drive on the public street of Woodward Avenue during the summer or during certain weekends. That is legal and that can continue. Effectively, the concern here is drawing the large crowds from people that are either out of town or out of the area that would want to congregate to this area to participate in this event. And for that reason alone, there's significant interest in having the communities formalize a resolution voicing their support for the cancellation of this event and the cancellation of the promotion of this event. Again, this does not prevent people from driving on the public street. This does encourage those people that would either come from out of town, come from other areas of the state, or come from other areas of the world to participate in this event, to encourage them for this year, given the environment we're in, to effectively stay home this year, like we're encouraging with a lot of the other events within this state, and trying to provide a safe environment for our residents at the same time. So in that regard, we have presented a resolution for your consideration this evening. A similar resolution, I believe, is going to be considered by Huntington Woods tomorrow, and then I believe Berkeley next week. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Nikita, sorry.
Just to be clear, Berkeley and Huntington Woods have yet to weigh in on this, but they're going to next week, is what you said, Joe, right? But the other communities along Woodward have already identified the Dream Cruise organization with their pulling out of this, right? Ferndale, Royal Oak, who else am I missing? There's a handful of communities.
Ferndale and Pleasant Ridge.
Pleasant Ridge, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about Bloomfield Hill? Well, Bloomfield Hills isn't really in it to begin with, right? Okay.
Correct.
Right. So, and we're expecting likely that Berkeley and Huntington Woods would probably follow suit as well. Is it? Have you had any discussions with them? Or they have similar concerns?
Yes, we've been on a call with several communities, Joe and I, myself.
Say that again. You skipped out a little bit on me. Can you say that again?
We were on a Zoom call with several communities, the one you mentioned, and also Ferndale, Berkeley, Huntington Woods. They were with us on the phone, and they were all on the same page as Joe explained earlier.
I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Baller, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I would move the suggested resolution.
Okay. To what?
I think we had a second from Commissioner Sherman.
Yep, second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sherman.
Yep.
I apologize, Commissioner Hoff, you had your hand raised. Go ahead.
I think my comments, they pertain to the motion. We have copies of the letters that each of these communities are sending in, so we know that they are all, as long as their councils pass it, they are asking the organization not to promote and not to sponsor the Dream Cruise this year. Berkeley, Berkeley does have a statement that the city would still welcome cruising so long as it's done safely in a vehicle without spectators clustering in the parking lots and at events. Well, the cities don't have to have events, but I don't see how it's going to stop people from driving on Woodward on that date. They're driving now on Woodward when the weather's nice and it's not even Dream Cruise. So I don't see that this is going to stop it, or it's going to stop people from clustering on the sidewalks. I think we should send it and support this. But my thought are, what will happen if there are lots of cars on Woodward, as I imagine there will be, and there are lots of people watching? Is there any type of penalty? And what will this cost the city? Regardless, we are going to have to have additional police on hand that weekend, because there are lots of people who are going to drive regardless. So what is the thinking on that?
Yeah, Commissioner Hoff, I will try to answer that. Yeah, go ahead.
So to your point, the point I was trying to stress earlier is that you're absolutely right. People are not going to stop driving on Woodward Avenue. What we're trying to avoid is the congregation of the crowds of people that would come for this event. Annually, this event will attract more than 1 million people to this corridor along Woodward Avenue. People from all over the world, not just this area. So by canceling the event and canceling the promotion of this event, we can discourage those crowds from coming to this area from other areas of the world, other areas of the country, and other areas of the state, to minimize the transactions that are going to happen amongst people that are going to be out cruising. So if we can cut the population down from 1.5 million to 20,000 people, we've effectively reduced the exposure for our community significantly. That's the effort that we're putting forward here, is trying to minimize that exposure opportunity to the greatest extent possible. So we're not going to stop everybody from coming, but if we stop the promotion of this event now, and it prevents people from making reservations at hotels, making plans to come into town during that week, cuts down on the travel that people will take to get here for that event, that's the focus of what we're trying to accomplish here. But you're absolutely right. We're not going to stop people from driving on the road during certain weekends.
And Commissioner Hobbs, just to add to that, also, even they're going with some cities if they opt in, but most of the cities that we talked to, they're not going to, is exactly what Joe said, is the promotion aspect of it that's going to drag a lot of people in one day versus now they're going to cruise from now on. They still cruise, and also there's no side vendors on either side of the street. And that's what's going to really drive the countdown of people. But go ahead, Commissioner Hall.
I understand that. I see that our Chief Clements is on the line with us, and I'd appreciate comments from him. You must have spoken to the other police chiefs, or you will before the end of August. What's the thinking on this? Are you going to have additional officers? How are you going to handle this?
I have spoken to other chiefs of police along the corridor, and there's not a single chief of police that I've talked to that is in favor of holding the event, given the circumstances as described by the city manager. But from the police department's perspective, we're going to probably handle it as if the Dream Cruise was actually going on, because despite our best efforts, hopefully by canceling an official cancellation, we can cut down on the numbers of people who come, who are gathered in groups and so forth. But we're still going to have, obviously Woodward Avenue, I'm sure, will probably be very, very busy, and I'm sure there will be associated crowds that do gather despite our best efforts to discourage that. So from a city perspective, we will be prepared, for a worst case scenario like we always are.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sherman, go ahead.
Chief, one of the places where it seems that people are congregating are in the turnouts that are owned by MDOT in front of the businesses. Are we able to contact MDOT to close them?
We can certainly try and do that. Right now, we're having some success in moving crowds out of there because of the governor's executive orders, and so far, for the most part, people have done so under voluntary compliance. So that is an avenue we can look at. In the past, they've been hesitant to do that. We have talked about that many times, especially last year. I know the sheriff's approached MDOT about that, and so far we've been unsuccessful in getting them to do that.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any other questions? We have a motion, seconded. Mayor Pro Tem, you have a question?
I was just going to ask Manager Valentine. So if we officially take the position that we are not participating or holding the Dream Cruise, does that mean that local stores and businesses wouldn't be able to have Dreams Cruise merchandise or displays on their property, or just not permitted in public spaces?
So in regards to the activities that normally happen, they would have to have tent permits to come outside with selling merchandise. We would not permit that because that would be permitted under our special event application. So that aspect of it would not be permitted this year.
Okay.
Question, Mayor Pro Tem. All right, with that, any comment on the motion from the public? Do we see any hand guys? I don't see any. It's clear. Okay, that'll bring it back. Alex, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Baylor?
Oh, unmute yourself, Mr. Baylor, so we can hear your answer, please.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Host? Absent?
No. I mean, yes. 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 Gee, yes. Yes. It was no on the last one, by the way, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
Yes.
Mayor Boutros.
Yes. Thank you, Alex. With that, we move to item F, resolution to meeting in closed session to review pending litigation in the matter of Colston versus the city of Birmingham.
So moved.
Second.
Awesome. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Hoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
Yes.
Awesome.
Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor?
Yes.
Mayor Boutros?
Yes, and just to add to that item that we are expecting to have an action on this item when we come back. All right, with that, we'll move on to remove from consent agenda. We'll take care of that. I was just seeing a hand, but I'm not sure why, but okay. Communications. Open to the public for matters not on the agenda. Do we see any public? I don't see any on my screen.
Bloom?
Mr. Bloom?
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, Mr. Bloom.
Thank you. I'll be brief.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the hot topics in Birmingham of late has been the noise coming from Woodward, and I know that a lot of complaints have been rolling in to the commissioners about it. Chief Clemens addressed the issue last week to the commission. Saturday evening, I heard a lot of noise from my home. I actually drove down to take a look and see what was going on and hung out there for a little bit. To me, most of the noise was coming from muscle cars and trucks. And from rapid acceleration. I didn't have a radar gun or anything, but it didn't seem to me it was a lot of speeding. It was more just people out trying to have a good time. And I understand the noise issue. I heard it too. At the same time, we have a car culture here. We have a car heritage. We can't go to baseball games. We can't go to bars. We can't go to concerts. We can't go out to restaurants. There's lots of things we can't do. People feel trapped in their homes. And one of the things that we can do is get in our car and go drive somewhere. And so these people are out trying to blow off some steam and have some fun. And I just think that when people hear the noise and get upset, they should just kind of take a little bit different perspective of it and think about those other people and to get out. And we should just all be a little more tolerant and understanding of what's going on. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other public comment? All right, seeing none. Reports, commissioner reports, commissioner comments. Any comment?
Yes. Can you hear me, Pierre?
Host, go ahead, please.
I have 3 comments, and the first one would be, last week we were nice enough to attempt to mitigate for our downtown area to get our citizens there, as well as to help the restaurants and the bistros. And I just want to emphasize there's really very little the commission and the city can do to mitigate the rent problem, in a sense. It's the landlords who, to some extent, will have the future of most of the businesses at heart. And I just want to emphasize to the public that there's not that much that we can do to help mitigate or give relief, but we've already done so. And of course, the flip side to that is it would be really nice to be thinking about relief for the neighborhoods. And the only one I've come up with in the last week is when we have the unimproved roads improved, that instead of the city charging 2% for the AAA rating bond, that they would consider not charging the 2% to the people, because I have always said our AAA bond rating is also, we're all AAA people. And as such, we figure into that. And this would be a nice way, equitably, to show those citizens that we're not taking advantage of them. The second point I like is going to piggyback on Mr. Bloom, and I hope Commander Gruey or Chief Clements can just maybe give us a little bit of an update. I think last weekend you were out in major force, and I appreciate it. Is there anything else that the chief or the commander would like to do that we can't do now? I'm asking.
No, I think this weekend went very well. What we've done, kind of to a little bit reiterate what we talked about last week, we've adjusted patrols, our normal patrols, to adjust starting times for the officers who are normally scheduled to work, to effectively work during the times that traffic on Woodward is most prevalent, on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. We've also brought in additional officers on an overtime basis to add to the patrols. And that's this past weekend. We had officers out in marked units, motorcycle units, unmarked units, and we did have some drive-throughs through the city as well by the Sheriff's Department and the Michigan State Police. So again, obviously we talked about the fact, and I echo what Mr. Bloom said, Woodward Avenue is a public road, and for all the reasons that Mr. Bloom talked about earlier, Woodward right now is a very busy place, and there is a lot of noise, and we're doing the best we can to mitigate that. But on the same token, obviously we're trying to find a balance for those who are out just trying to go for a drive and use the road, as well as trying to keep it, at a reasonable decibel level for our, the citizens that surround the whole entire Woodward corridor. So right now, I think we're doing the best we can, and I think our plan in place is a good one. And it's going to be a long summer, but hopefully that we'll get some take by the driving community, and hopefully the problem will help itself resolve itself.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, can I ask one more question of the Chief?
Yes, Commissioner Host, let's not turn it into big discussion, but I appreciate you. 1 second. Manager Joe Valentine want to add something to it too, if you don't mind. 1 second.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead, Joe.
Just elaborate on that issue with regard to noise. The last conversation we had, we were looking at options to explore getting some clarity from the state on the motor vehicle code. And in discussions with our state rep today, it's my understanding that request for the Attorney General's opinion has been submitted. And we hope to hear something soon to report to you with regard to getting some further clarity on that for enforcement purposes. So we may have something at the next meeting.
Super.
Commissioner Host, with your third comment.
Okay, my question for Chief Clements, would it help get the word out if we started impounding some of these souped-up cars? I'm just asking.
Well, again, that's a legal question. I think that, you can only impound a car if you have a legal reason to impound the car. So just because the car is noisy or because we think that's not a justifiable reason for impounding a car. So again, we have to follow the law, and impounding cars is not applicable in this case, unless there's another outstanding violation that occurs as a result of our interaction with the motorist.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Host, would that conclude your comments?
That's it. Yes.
Thank you so much. Gladly we had you back. I see another hand. Commissioner Baller, go ahead.
Yes, I have 3 comments. The first is about public comment, and apparently at least one commissioner felt that we were not explicit enough last time around, and rather than wait another 2 weeks to have the clerk review the minutes and come back, I think I'd just like to ask the 4 commissioners that I heard agree that we ought to review the public comment thing, raise their hands, or otherwise indicate that so that that they support a review of public comment, so that we have an unambiguous direction to the administration. So I'll raise my hand. I support that. All we need.
I'm raising my hand.
Okay, and then we can move on to my next comment.
Well,
Mr. Host's hand is raised. Yes.
Commissioner Baller, let us review.
I'll move on to my next comment right away, Mayor. All we need, I heard you agree that we should review this last week. If you agree, we can move on to the next item.
Yeah, I can tell you exactly what I said. I definitely said that we had a trial phase for the minutes. Unfortunately, we are going under unprecedented time right now, and that time had expired. We decided, because of the Zoom, to go back to the normal date as it expired. But we still have to have discussion on it. Yes.
So you support some further discussion on it?
But that's what I said. Correct.
So
Okay, Mr. Mayor,
qualify as direction to this? I'll ask the city manager. Are you satisfied that you have direction to bring that back to us for discussion? I think you're muted. You're muted, Joe.
My only point I was making, that if you wanted to get consensus, I think it'd be fair to talk to all the commissioners before you do that, so that you have a clear discussion amongst the commission.
Okay, I'll move on to my next comment because that's silly. And I mean, Commissioner Hoff, I saw you making a move toward.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hoff.
No one disagreed with your evaluating that. There was no disagreement. The thing is, it wasn't scheduled. My thinking, what I heard is it was going to be evaluated at some point. So I don't think there was any disagreement with it. We don't have to name how many commissioners said yes or no. No one said no. They said, let's evaluate it at the appropriate time when we're back in session.
We're in session right now, Commissioner Hoff.
Right, when we're in live session.
Well, we may not be in live session for 6 months. Are you suggesting that? I did not hear that timing aspect. Okay, so that's the end of my comment.
Now, let's be clear about one thing, if I could, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear. We have a process in the way we go about things. Now, the minutes were incorrect, in my opinion, and I would ask for a review, which we did, and we should go about this in a proper, organized way. As Commissioner Hoff said, there was no discussion to the point where we had a dialogue. It wasn't about that. No one said yes or no in that regard. We need to have this process done in the appropriate way that we do. What we typically do is look at the minutes, and if we feel that they're incorrect, they need to be clarified. Let's go about the process in the way that it should be, and then go from there. We get the minutes back, then we can take this on. And it's not about usurping the circumstance. Let it work in the proper manner, and then we'll move on. So I suggest that we continue to do that as we've always done that. There is an order to this whole thing, and we're following it. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ballard, continue with your comment, please.
Yeah, for the community, I wanted to call attention to a story that's contained in an edition of Downtown Magazine that is about to arrive in their mailbox. The story was about an application pending before the city for a lot combination, and that application was submitted by Mayor Boutros. The story by Downtown editor Lisa Brody is factually incorrect in a number of respects, and it casts Mayor Boutros and the City Commission unfairly in a negative light. The publisher of Downtown has admitted to me that it contained false statements. He's changed the online version, and he says he intends to publish a correction a month from now in the June print edition of the magazine. In the meantime, I think it's important to set the record straight. In my opinion, the entire article should be retracted, not merely corrected. The truth of the matter of what happened last week at our commission meeting was this. On the commission's consent agenda was an item that asked us to set a public hearing for the mayor's request to combine two lots that he owns on Frank Street. The mayor announced his intention to recuse himself from discussion or voting on the item, which he did. The item remained on the consent agenda, and it was approved by the remaining 6 commissioners. Unfortunately, the story in downtown does not reflect the truth. The headline stated that Mayor Boutros is seeking a special exception to the law. He is not. The headline, the story stated twice that he insisted that his application be heard by the commission. He did not. The story stated that 2 commissioners removed the item from the consent agenda. That didn't happen. And the story suggested several times that the commission has called for some sort of moratorium on lot combinations. It has not. It's worth noting that a video of last week's commission meeting was posted online within minutes of the end of the meeting. So clearly the reporter did not review that recording. I don't believe that the reporter fabricated the story. I'd rather not speculate on her source. But what is important for members of the community to know is that this is not how the city of Birmingham works. It's not how Mayor Boutros works. And it's not how this commission collectively works. So I hope that message gets out. And I hope people realize that what they're reading in the paper is not true. My other comment, we're now at 90,000 dead Americans in this pandemic. 12 of them were from Birmingham. I don't know their names. I don't know their families. In this morning's Washington Post, there was an excellent op-ed by a professor of history at the University of Connecticut. I shared it with some or all of you. And she expressed my feelings about this better than I could. And I'd like to read a couple paragraphs excerpted from her. Her name is Mickey McElia. Americans have a common set of expectations and rituals for responding to national losses, she said, whether they're from war, terrorism, school shootings, natural disasters, or assassinations. We lower flags to half staff. We hold candlelight vigils. We leave flowers, stuffed animals, and messages of sympathy at sites that have witnessed horrors. We pause for moments of silence. We speak the names of the dead. We observe funereal pageantry from sidewalks, on television, and online. We build memorials. This public repertoire is always productive. Emotions, communities, and common causes. The pandemic dead have received almost none of this, and the omission is significant. Shared grief brings people together like little else. In the absence of the common bonds of kinship, place, language, faith, or heritage, national identity is forged in ritual and the sense of shared experience among strangers, the vast majority of whom will never know one another. It is made of feeling and remembering together. I just want to say to the families of those who have died, and this is me talking, to anyone who knows anyone who has died, whether they're from Birmingham or anywhere else, that I expect most of those who are here tonight, grieve with you and mourn for all who have died. And at the risk of extending our meeting for just a few extra moments, Mayor, I'd like to request that we give a moment of silence in their honor.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baller. Thank you, everybody. Would that conclude your comments?
Yes.
Awesome. We go to next to advisory boards, committees, commissions, reports, and agendas, legislation, city staff. And with that, we can recess and adjourn, come back after we take an action on a closed session item.
Remember to unmute yourselves.
All right.
Oh, you have to unmute. I'm on mute. Can you hear me, ladies, gentlemen?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have everybody back, though. I only see Mayor Pro Tem along.
In the bottom right hand corner of the screen, if you click the button that says leave room, that'll take you out.
Stuart and Mark and Therese.
There we go.
I just closed all the rooms, so they'll be forced back.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Alex. Let's see. Got Tim back. I got Commissioner Baller back. I got Commissioner Hoff. If you don't mind, unmute yourself, guys, if you want to. Who else? Are we waiting for anybody? Commissioner Host.
I'm here.
Okay, awesome.
I'm here.
We've got Mary. We've got
What do I see now?
Becky's back. Okay, good.
All right, are we ready, Eric? You let me know.
Commissioner Host is here, but I got he's muted.
It's okay. Right? Yeah, where we are. She's going to go into public. We are in the public now. All right, awesome. As mentioned earlier, we went to closed session. We're back with an item that we had to take an action on. We have a motion to be read by a resolution to be read by our attorney, Tim Courier. Go ahead, Tim.
Thank you, Mayor. What we're asking the commission to do this evening is to approve a consent decree in the lawsuit filed against the city by Erica Colston versus the city of Birmingham, which involved an action for accessible parking and ADA compliant crosswalks. After a successful negotiation, we presented an extensive outline of a 5-year plan to fix the crosswalks that also contains a relatively small attorney fee paid to the plaintiff's counsel, the amount of $30,000. I'm requesting that the commission approve the consent decree and authorize myself as a member of the federal bar to sign the same on behalf of the city.
Thank you, Mr. Courier. I see a hand, Mr. Sherman.
So moved.
Awesome. Got a motion and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Long. Any comment on the motion? Seeing none. Any comment from the public? I don't see anybody, do we? None? Okay, Alex, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Long?
Yes.
Commissioner Host?
Commissioner Host, if you don't mind, unmute yourself. If you're on your phone, *6 and say yes. Well, say whatever you want to say.
Nice try, Mayor.
Yeah, I corrected myself.
Yeah, I know you did.
We don't see him. We're gonna call him absent for that. Go ahead, Alex. Continue, please.
Commissioner Nikita?
Yes.
Commissioner Baylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Huff?
Yes.
Mayor Boutros?
Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. With that, we'll adjourn. Have a wonderful night, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.